Li Mei's Sword of Destiny. Chapter 1171. Roar. Rumble. At the same time, Qin Feiyang's cultivation had already stacked to the level of a 3-star war emperor. His entire body was surrounded by a bloody aura, as if a god of death had descended to the world. The terrifying aura caused the fierce beasts to tremble in fear. Qin Feiyang said, "The murderous aura is too strong. I can't control it anymore. I have to let the inner demons out." "All right." Yin Wei nodded. Qin Feiyang closed his eyes and his consciousness entered his inner world. The inner demons had long been prepared, because he knew that Qin Feiyang was unable to control the kill character tactic. Qin Feiyang said, "Please, don't worry." The inner demons laughed and instantly disappeared from his inner world. Outside, Qin Feiyang suddenly opened his eyes, and 2 shocking bloody lights burst out from his eyes. At this moment, the murderous aura around his body became even stronger, and his eyes were filled with ruthlessness and bloodthirst. The inner demons turned to look at Yin Wei. Yin Wei instinctively felt a sense of fear in his heart. "Old brat, there's nothing else for you to do here. Go to the castle and play." The inner demons laughed arrogantly. Without waiting for Yin Wei to react, he directly sent Yin Wei to the castle. Immediately after, he suddenly turned around and looked at the deepest part of the Magic Dragon Mountain range. He laughed wildly this time. "I will kill to my heart's content, haha." He took a step forward, and his murderous aura turned into millions of strands and entered the mountain stream below. Boom! Crack! Roar! For a moment the mountains below collapsed and the ground cracked, and the fierce beasts howled miserably. He was like a god of death drowned in blood. Wherever he went, not a single person was left alive, leaving behind a mess. And his cultivation was like a volcanic eruption, crazily soaring. Hinterland. The dark red giant peak was like a blood-sucking magic sword, and its baleful aura soared to the sky. Not to mention getting close, just looking at it from afar was enough to make one's hair stand on end. At this moment, Ren Duxing, together with Zhang Jin and the other 2 and the 4 holy beasts, had already climbed halfway up the giant peak. The stone staircase was bumpy and had been there for many years. The 3 humans and 4 beasts walked on the stone steps and could feel the rich ancient aura. Zhang Jin said, "Based on the current situation, reaching the top of the mountain shouldn't be a problem." Ren Duxing nodded, a trace of inexplicable excitement in his eyes. Looking at the peak of the mountain, he was also filled with longing. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. After about half an hour, the peak of the mountain finally appeared in front of them. The desire in Ren Duxing's eyes grew even stronger. He quickened his pace. Seeing this, Zhang Jin's group and the 4 holy beasts couldn't help but rush forward. 10 breaths later, finally, the group stepped onto the last step and stood at the peak of the mountain. The mysterious power became more and more terrifying, and the barrier formed by the 2 divine artifacts began to shake. The peak of the mountain was as smooth as a mirror, as if it had been carved by a giant axe. At the center of the mountain peak, there was a cloud of black fog floating in the air. The black fog was surging, filled with a demonic aura, as if there was a peerless beast lurking inside, giving people a great sense of crisis. The moment they reached the peak of the mountain, Ren Duxing didn't look around but directly looked at the black fog. Dongqing looked at the black fog and then looked at Ren Duxing. Her eyes flashed slightly, and she said respectfully, "Lord, this subordinate has something to ask, but I don't know if it's appropriate." "Ask," Ren Duxing said. "When we were about to reach the peak of the mountain, your eyes became different from before. This subordinate wants to ask, did you already know what was inside?" Dongqing said. "Yes." Ren Duxing nodded. "What is it?" Dongqing was surprised. Ren Duxing stared at the black fog and said word by word, "A dragon claw." Dragon claw. Dongqing and Zhang Jin looked at each other, and the surprise in their eyes grew stronger. Dragon claw. At the same time, the 4 holy beasts also fell into deep thought. Suddenly, the holy monkey seemed to think of something and asked, "Lord, could it be the dragon claw of that dragon?" "Yes." Ren Duxing nodded. Gasp! The 4 holy beasts suddenly gasped, and when they looked at the black fog again, their eyes were full of fear. But at the same time there was a strong sense of greed. "Follow me closely." Ren Duxing's eyes flashed, and he said in a low voice, and then walked toward the black fog. The 4 holy beasts followed closely behind Renduxing, looking extremely nervous. Seeing this, Zhang Jin and Dongqing looked at each other and couldn't help but be vigilant. One had to know. The 4 holy beasts used to be at the pseudo-god level. Even they were so cautious, it could be seen that the so-called dragon claw was definitely not ordinary terrifying. The peak of the mountain was not big, only about 100 feet in diameter. The radius was only 50 feet. For Renduxing and the others, the distance of 50 feet was just a step. But at this moment they were especially careful, as if they were walking on thin ice. 40 feet, 30 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet. A distance of 30 meters was undoubtedly a short distance for them. Could even be said that it was easy to get. The excitement on Renduxing's face was also undisguised. 50 feet, 30 feet, 10 feet, half a meter. Finally, they walked to the front of the black fog, and there was only a distance of half a meter between them. It was within reach. However, the boundary that protected them also shook more violently, but there was no sign of it breaking. Chapter 1172. No! The 4 sacred beasts suddenly turned pale with fright. However, it was too late for them to stop it. Renduxing's arm had already reached into the black fog. Immediately, Renduxing's face contorted and was filled with pain. The black fog was like a gangrene attached to the bone, crazily drilling into his arm. But in an instant, his entire arm turned pitch black, and his flesh and blood were hollowed out, leaving only skin and bones. Even his skin and bones were rotting and melting, and the black fog along his arm rushed into his body. Lord! The 4 sacred beasts anxiously roared. Lord, where there's life, there's hope. Let's go. Seeing this scene, Zhang Jin and Dongqing couldn't help but be afraid and hurriedly cried out. Just one more step. Just one more step. Damn it! Renduxing roared unwillingly, cut off his arm, and retreated to the edge of the mountain with Zhang Jin, Dongqing, and the 4 sacred beasts like lightning. Immediately, he tried his best to revive the magic crystal and the battle sword. It was not until 5 or 6 breaths later that the crack was repaired. And at this moment, regardless of whether it was Renduxing, the 4 divine beasts, or Zhang Jin and the other 2, they all looked extremely old and decrepit. If we were a little later, no 5 breaths. If we were 5 breaths later, we would all be buried here. Zhang Jin murmured. Yes, Dongqing was also scared. At this time her hair was white, her body was bent, and her youthful vitality was gone. She was like an old woman with 1 foot in the grave. The 4 sacred beasts also let out a long breath. However, Renduxing stared at the black fog, his eyes full of anger. It was clearly in front of him and he could reach out and touch it, but now he could only look at it. This helplessness, this grievance was driving him crazy. Zhang Jin, Dongqing, and the 4 sacred beasts were silent, and they didn't dare to disturb him, because they all knew that Renduxing was now on the verge of going berserk. If I was still in peak condition, I wouldn't be afraid of a mere dragon claw. Suddenly, Renduxing roared towards the sky. His voice was like a great bell that resounded for thousands of miles, venting the anger in his heart. Who is roaring? In the sky above a forest, the imperial advisor and the others stopped in the void and looked in the direction of the hinterland in bewilderment. An old man in black said, "That's not Qin Feiyang's voice. It's very unfamiliar." Go. A cold glint flashed in the imperial preceptor's eyes, and the group of people immediately turned into streams of light and rushed toward the hinterland. The mountain peak. Time passed by slowly. After Renduxing calmed down, the holy monkey comforted him. "My lord, don't worry. I believe that no one in the world can take away this dragon claw. It won't be too late to take it away when you recover your peak strength." What do you know? Renduxing suddenly turned around and glared at it angrily. Did I say anything wrong? Saint Monkey shrank his neck and asked cautiously. Wrong, very wrong. Renduxing roared. Saint Monkey was puzzled. Renduxing said, "Do you know about the demon dragon's heart and demon dragon's eye?" Saint Monkey thought for a moment and asked, "Are you talking about the demon dragon's heart and demon dragon's eye that were sealed in the Forgotten Continent?" "Yes. Now they have fallen into Qin Feiyang's hands," Renduxing said in a deep voice. "What? He has this ability. Saint Monkey was stunned. Saint Eagle, Saint Lion, and Saint Python were also very surprised. Ren Duxing said. Mu Qing told this to Lu Xingchen when she went to the imperial capital to rescue Qin Feiyang. Later Lu Xingchen told me, so it is absolutely true. Qin Feiyang indeed doesn't have this ability, but the ancient castle and Chang Shui on him can. The ancient castle Chang Shui. The eyes of the four saint beasts trembled. Even the demon dragon's heart and demon dragon's eye could be taken away. What level were these two divine artifacts? I originally thought that the Chang Shui and the ancient castle were divine artifacts of the same level as the battle sword and demon crystal, but now I know that I was wrong. The Chang Shui and the ancient castle are far superior to the battle sword and demon crystal. If I had known earlier, I would have thought of a way to snatch the Chang Shui and the ancient castle in the ruined lands. Ren Duxing said, his face full of regret. Zhang Jin said, as long as Master wants, there will be a chance at any time. Ren Duxing glanced at him and shook his head. You underestimate him too much. He is not as easy to deal with as you think. Once you fight with him, once you miss the opportunity, it will be difficult to find another opportunity. Zhang Jin raised his eyebrows, looking a little unhappy. Ren Duxing mercilessly said, don't be unconvinced. Although your cultivation has skyrocketed compared to him, you are still far behind. Zhang Jin was indeed very unconvinced. He also admitted that he could not be compared to Qin Feiyang in the past. Just like in the state capital, Qin Feiyang rose rapidly like a shining star, and he was just a nobody at that time. He could only stand in the distance and silently look up. But now, he had been reborn, and was no longer the humble and pitiful worm of the past. Even in terms of cultivation over the years, not only did he catch up to Qin Feiyang, but he also far surpassed Qin Feiyang. So, now, facing Qin Feiyang, he no longer had that sense of inferiority. He even felt that he was stronger and more outstanding than Qin Feiyang, no than anyone else. And now Ren Duxing had been replaced by Mu Tianyang. How sharp was his insight! Naturally, he could tell what Zhang Jin was thinking at a glance. Ren Duxing said lightly, don't forget who gave you all this. Zhang Jin's eyes trembled slightly, and he hurriedly bowed and said, I know I was wrong, please forgive me, Lord. I said this not to scold you, but to let you know that a person should have self-awareness. Of course, if one day you can really trample Qin Feiyang under your feet, I will also be very gratified. Ren Duxing said. Zhang Jin was slightly taken aback and asked, so Lord allows me to deal with Qin Feiyang? Of course, although I value him very much, but people who can't be used by me are all big problems, and will be eliminated in the end. Besides, the main reason I keep him is because I still need him to help me do something. In short, you can just treat him as a stepping stone. As for whether you can step on him, that depends on whether you have the ability. Ren Duxing said. Zhang Jin was overjoyed, and he bowed and said, don't worry, Lord. I will do my best to trample him under my feet. Ren Duxing said with a smile, Qin Feiyang's wisdom and talent are world famous. You have such confidence, my training is not in vain. Zhang Jin said respectfully, this subordinate will definitely do his best to repay Master's kindness in nurturing me. Ren Duxing nodded and turned his head to look at the black fog again. Dong Qing looked at Ren Duxing, and then at the black fog, and her eyes were full of fear. She said respectfully, Lord, it's not safe here, we should leave this place first, and then slowly think of a way. Yes, Lord, your divine soul has not been condensed yet, and it will be difficult for you to revive a divine tool for a long time, let alone two divine tools at the same time. The four sacred beasts also persuaded, and their eyes were full of worry. Sigh. Ren Duxing sighed helplessly. His current body was just a mortal body without divine power, and he could only rely on his divine sense to revive the battle sword and demon crystal. As everyone knew, reviving a sacred tool required a huge amount of energy, let alone a divine tool. If he continued, his divine sense would be exhausted by the two divine tools, and his divine soul would be destroyed. His divine soul would be destroyed. This was not the ending he wanted to see. Chapter 1173. The stone tablet was hundreds of feet tall, standing between heaven and earth like a towering mountain. After retreating from the hinterland, Ren Duxing stood above the stone tablet, looking at the giant peak with flickering eyes. Zhang Jin's eyes flashed slightly, and he suggested, my lord, why don't we go to Lu Xingchen and get the space divine item? Dongqing suddenly said, yes, the space divine item is also a divine artifact. Together with the demonic crystal and the battle sword, there are 3 divine artifacts. Maybe they can block the erosion of the black fog. Ren Duxing shook his head and said, although the space divine item is a divine artifact, it doesn't have much power. In other words, Lu Xingchen's space divine item didn't have much of a defense against the erosion of the black fog. Hearing this, Zhang Jin frowned. Suddenly, he seemed to think of something and asked, what about your divine bones? Ren Duxing was silent. What do you mean? Zhang Jin and Dongqing looked at each other. They didn't understand what Ren Duxing was thinking. Holy Monkey glanced at Ren Duxing and said angrily, there are some things you don't understand. Don't make suggestions. The two looked at it in confusion. The owner of this dragon claw was stronger than my lord when he was alive. Although he only has 1 dragon claw now, my lord is now weak. Although my lord's divine bones are the body of the god of war, he can't exert his peak strength without the divine soul and divine blood. So even if my lord's divine sense enters the divine bones, he can't shake this dragon claw. Holy Monkey said. Holy Eagle said in a deep voice, this is only the second thing. The most important thing is that if my lord's divine bones are damaged, it will undoubtedly be more difficult for my lord to recover his peak strength in the future. Stronger than my lord at his peak? Zhang Jin and Dongqing were dumbfounded. Yes, the 4 divine beasts nodded. Zhang Jin said, what kind of monster is it? Monster? Holy Monkey was stunned and sighed. This name is indeed suitable for it. After that it fell silent. The other 3 divine beasts also fell silent. Seeing this, Zhang and Jin looked at each other, their eyes filled with disbelief. But seeing that the 4 great sacred beasts refused to say anything, they didn't dare to continue asking. Time slowly passed. After an unknown period of time, Ren Duxing clenched his fists and said in a low voice, I must get my hands on the dragon claw today. I'll go to the Imperial City immediately to look for Lu Xingchen and retrieve my divine bone. My lord, this is no small matter. You must think twice. That's right. Besides, Lu Xingchen is currently in the imperial capital, and the teleportation altar is located in the mountain behind the palace. With Old Man Qin guarding it, we can't enter. The 4 great saint beasts were startled, and they hurriedly replied. Don't you know what to do? Ren Duxing shouted. The 4 holy beasts shrunk their necks and lowered their heads in silence. If there was only 1 Elder Qin in the imperial capital, they would have dared to take a risk. However, there were other false gods in the imperial capital. With their current strength, entering the imperial capital was simply courting death. I'll go. Suddenly, Zhang Jin gritted his teeth and said. The 4 holy beasts looked at him in surprise. Zhang Jin said, Qin Feiyang has snuck into the imperial capital many times without being discovered. I believe that I have the ability to do the same. Dongqing frowned slightly and said, it seems that you're going to compete with Qin Feiyang until the end. Zhang Jin sneered and said, every dog has its day. I've endured humiliation for so long. It's time for me to rise. Very good. Ren Duxing nodded and was very impressed. He waved his hand and said, go, I'll wait for you here. Zhang Jin opened the teleportation gate and walked in confidently. Looking at Zhang Jin's back, Dongqing raised her eyebrows and turned to Ren Duxing. She asked suspiciously, my lord, can't you and the divine bone sense each other? Why did you let Zhang Jin go? Ren Duxing said, the divine bone and I can sense each other, but it's only limited to the 9 provinces. Now that the divine bone is in the imperial capital, I can't sense his location, let alone contact him. Dongqing nodded her head in understanding. The Holy Monkey said, my lord, I still have to advise you to reconsider. Ren Duxing waved his hand and said, don't say anything more. If I don't take the dragon claw this time, it will definitely fall into Qin Feiyang's hands again. The Holy Monkey was puzzled. He doesn't know that we're here, and he doesn't know that the dragon claw is here. How will it fall into his hands? Ren Duxing put away the demonic crystal, and then grabbed the battle sword. He said, because I told him that this battle sword was found in the magical dragon mountains. With his suspicious personality, he will definitely come to the magical Dragon Mountains to check it out sooner or later. The holy monkey raised its eyebrows. Isn't his lord being too paranoid? Whoosh! At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air was heard. Someone's coming? It can't be Qin Feiyang, can it? The holy monkey turned around, its eyes full of surprise. At the same time, Ren Duxing Dongqing and the other 3 holy beasts also frowned and looked up. They saw streaks of light flashing through the air in the distance. The leader was an old man. He had white hair and a white beard, and he looked like an immortal. But at this moment the old man's eyes were extremely gloomy, giving off a bone-chilling coldness. Behind the old man was a group of black-clothed men. They were all serious and their eyes were as sharp as blades. It's him. Dongqing's pupils suddenly shrank when she saw the old man. Who is it? Chapter 1174. Shua. The man in black stopped in front of Ren Duxing and the others, and shouted arrogantly, "Who are you? Tell me your name." Ren Duxing gave Dongqing a look. To be honest, he was very unhappy at the moment. One had to know. Not only was he the emperor of the previous dynasty, he was also an invincible war god. When had he ever been ordered around like this? But today was different from the past. Even though he was once the ruler of this continent, he could only swallow his anger now. Dongqing understood and took a step forward. Looking at the imperial tutor, he cupped his hands and smiled. "I am Dong Yuan." Saying that, she pointed to Ren Duxing and said, "This is my big brother Dong Rui." Then she pointed to the 4 sacred beasts and smiled. "They are the fierce beasts that we siblings have subdued." After introducing them one by one, Dongqing smiled and asked, "May I ask what business you have with us?" "Dong Yuan Dong Rui?" The man in black frowned. What an unfamiliar name, and asked, "Where are you from? What are you doing in the Magic Dragon Mountain range?" Dongqing laughed hoarsely. "We are hidden cultivators from the He province. Naturally we came to the Magic Dragon Mountain range to explore." At this moment, her face was old, her body was stooped, and her long hair was snow-white. Her laughter gave off a cold feeling. A hidden cultivator from the He province? The man in black raised his eyebrows. He was a 6-star war emperor, so he could naturally see through the cultivation of Ren Duxing and the others. The lowest was a war saint, and there were even war king. One had to know. Whether it was the He province or the other 8 provinces, the strongest person with a cultivation base was the 9-star war sect. Furthermore, the people of the imperial capital, in their subconscious, did not believe that there was an existence that surpassed the war sect in the 9 provinces. So no matter how he looked at it, he felt that the 2 people in front of him were suspicious. The man in black's eyes flashed. He took out 2 Heaven's Eye stone, looked at Dongqing and Ren Duxing and said, "I need to verify your identities." Ren Duxing's expression was calm, but the anger in his heart had already ignited. Such behavior was a great disrespect to him. Dongqing was also annoyed. She glared at the man in black and said, "Sir, we've only met by chance. Don't you think it's inappropriate for you to be so aggressive?" "Inappropriate?" The man in black sneered. Dongqing added, "Besides, you don't have the right to question us." "No authority." The man in black smiled, but his smile was full of ridicule. He took out a black token from his bosom and said, "Do you know what this is?" On the front of the token was a small black sword. Although it was only an icon, one could still feel the bone-piercing sharpness of it. On the other side there was a black skull. It looked just like a real skull and was extremely terrifying. Dongqing glanced at the token and shook her head. "I've never seen it before, so I don't know." Ignorant and inexperienced. "Let me tell you, this is the identity token of the inner hall of the Law Enforcement Hall." The man in black sneered. Inner hall? Dongqing was doubtful. She knew about the Law Enforcement Hall, but she had never heard of the inner hall. "Do you know where the temple is?" The man in black asked again. Dongqing shook her head. The man in black said, "The temple is in the imperial city of the imperial capital, and it is personally managed by the current imperial preceptor." The imperial capital? Dongqing's face was full of surprise. Of course it was fake. The man in black said proudly, "The Law Enforcement Hall is the highest authority in the imperial capital. and we have the power to kill all living beings in the Great Qin Empire. So powerful? Dongqing was dumbfounded. The man in black smiled proudly, pointed at the Imperial Preceptor, and asked, "Do you know who he is?" Dongqing shook her head again. The man in black said, "He is the current Imperial Preceptor, the master of the current Emperor, and an invincible god." What? Dongqing's body and mind trembled, and her face was full of horror. But in her heart she sneered. He was only a false god, but he insisted that he was a god. How shameless! The man in black put away the token and shouted, "Now tell me, do I have the authority or not?" Dongqing's eyes trembled slightly, and she hurriedly said, "I'm sorry, I was blind just now, please forgive me." After saying that, she stepped forward and respectfully took the Heaven's Eye Stone. The man in black sneered. Everyone in the imperial capital looked down on the people of the 9 prefectures from the bottom of their hearts. In short, in their eyes, the people of the 9 prefectures were lowly people. Dongqing took the Heaven's Eye Stone and walked to Ren Duxing, and said, "Master, I'm sorry." Ren Duxing smiled faintly and took one of the Heaven's Eye Stones. Dongqing also turned to look at the man in black, holding the other Heaven's Eye Stone tightly in her hand. Now that they were showing their real faces, of course they were not afraid. Time passed little by little. After a dozen breaths, seeing that Ren Duxing and Dongqing's appearance did not change at all, the man in black could not help but frown. Dongqing handed the 2 Heaven's Eye Stones to the man in black and asked, "Master, are you satisfied now?" The man in black raised his eyebrows, put away the Heaven's Eye Stones and waved his hand. Battle chi surged out, and a shadow condensed. It was Qin Feiyang. The man in black asked, "Have you seen him?" Dongqing glanced at the shadow and shook her head. "No. You really haven't seen him?" The man in black narrowed his eyes slightly, and rays of cold light burst out. "No," Dongqing said without blushing or skipping a beat. The man in black took a deep look at her, returned to the front of the state preceptor, and bowed. "Master, I've asked clearly. They are secluded cultivators in He province, and came to the Magic Dragon Mountain range for exploration. They have not seen Qin Feiyang." Secluded cultivators? The state preceptor's eyes flickered. The man in black said again, "I've also carefully observed them. When they answered the question, I didn't find any trace of lying." The state preceptor glanced at Dongqing and Ren Duxing, and then looked up at the hinterland, his eyes full of suspicion. The outside was full of vitality, but there was not a single blade of grass growing inside. It was a bit strange. Suddenly, he noticed the 2 lines of blood on the stone tablet. The hinterland of the Magic Dragon Mountain range, intruders die. Look at the color and traces of these words, they should be old. The state preceptor muttered, suddenly took a step forward, and landed in front of Ren Duxing and Dongqing. The law enforcers behind him hurriedly followed. The state preceptor pointed to the hinterland, looked at Ren Duxing and Dongqing, and asked, "What's inside?" Dongqing's eyes flashed, and she shook her head. "We haven't had time to go in, so we don't know what's inside." The state preceptor said, "Then go in and have a look." He always felt that there was some hidden danger in the hinterland, so he asked Ren Duxing and the others to open the way for him. Dongqing's eyes suddenly darkened. Now they didn't have much vitality left. If they went in again, it was tantamount to suicide. Of course, they could also revive the divine artifact to resist the erosion of the mysterious force. But in this way, the divine artifact would be exposed. If the state preceptor saw the divine artifact, he would definitely suspect their identity and attack them. An old man in black shouted, "Didn't you hear what the state preceptor said? Go in quickly." Dongqing glanced at the group of people, turned to Ren Duxing, and said secretly, "Master, what should we do?" Ren Duxing's eyes flickered. Suddenly, a cold light flashed in the depths of his eyes, and he shouted, "Get out of the way." Dongqing was shocked and quickly dodged to the side. At the same time, clang! Accompanied by a deafening noise, the red battle sword appeared out of thin air. His divine sense surged, and the battle sword instantly revived, slashing at the state preceptor with lightning speed. The terrifying edge tore the sky and split the earth. Divine power rolled in all directions. This aura, the state preceptor was stunned, and he suddenly shouted, "This is a divine artifact, retreat." What? A divine artifact? The group of law enforcers' faces changed color. and they quickly retreated. At the same time, a terrifying divine power roared out from the state preceptor's body. He raised his arm and slapped at the battle sword. The power of the false god surged out. Boom! Clang! In an instant. Chapter 1175. The imperial tutor was buried in the dust. Renduxing's face became paler and paler. Obviously, the confrontation this time had also caused his vitality to be greatly damaged. With a wave of his hand, the battle sword returned to his hand, emitting an ear-piercing sound. I didn't want to fight with you now, but you're too meddlesome and forced me to kill you. Murderous intent flashed in his eyes as he landed in the sky above the mountain, and sent a wisp of divine sense into the battle sword. Clang! The battle sword immediately recovered and its sharp edge tore through the void and the earth, shocking the world. Imperial Tutor. Dongrue, don't you dare touch the Imperial Tutor. Let me tell you, if anything happens to the Imperial Tutor, His Majesty will not let you off and there will be no place for you in the Great Qin Empire. Seeing this, the enforcers in the distance could not help but shout angrily. Place. Renduxing raised the corner of his mouth and murmured, "This continent was originally mine." Clang! He suddenly raised his arm and the battle sword in his hand emitted a dazzling divine light. Then he slashed at the ruins below. Boom! However, at this moment, the ruins below exploded and the Imperial Tutor rushed into the sky. His body was dripping with blood and emitted a shocking murderous aura. You want to kill me? You don't have the ability. He stared at Renduxing and smiled coldly. His index finger pointed in the air and the false god's power surged out. A pitch-black full moon rose slowly, emitting a dazzling black light. Its divine power was shocking. Divine art. Renduxing's pupils constricted. As a former war god, he knew the power of divine arts better than anyone else. Some divine arts' lethality was not inferior to divine weapons, and the divine art that the Imperial Tutor was using was almost comparable to the battle sword in his hand. I don't care who you are, but as long as you offend me, you will have to pay a heavy price. Kill. The Imperial Preceptor let out a long howl, and the full moon suspended above his head instantly radiated a terrifying murderous aura, which charged towards Renduxing. At this moment, the void shattered and the sky trembled. The earth collapsed crazily. The scene of doomsday was nothing more than this. Dongqing and the enforcers watched this scene from afar, and their hearts were in turmoil. Shattering the void, such a terrifying method. Only the gods could do it. Renduxing looked at the full moon with a solemn expression. Logically speaking, in his current state, he shouldn't be fighting with the Imperial Tutor, especially in such a long and fierce battle. But the arrow was already knocked on the bowstring, and it had to be released. The Imperial Preceptor was already enraged, so he could not avoid it. Clang! A sword chime reverberated in the air. Kill! He gripped his sword tightly with both hands, and with a roar, he slashed through the air. A crimson sword shadow tore through the air. It was several thousand feet long, and its sharpness swept across the sky as it madly swept toward the full moon. Rumble! Clang! In an instant, the two collided and exploded high up in the sky like fireworks, dazzling and dazzling. Retreat again! Sage roared. As a former fake god, it knew how terrifying the battle between Renduxing and the Imperial Master was. Whoosh! Hearing the holy monkeys roar, Dongqing and the other three holy beasts immediately turned around and fled without looking back. When the enforcers saw Dongqing and the four sacred beasts fleeing, they also fled for their lives. Boom! Crack! Their decision was wise. The reason for that was because right after they fled, the aura that was capable of destroying the world surged forth. The mountains and rivers below collapsed one after another. The beasts died one after another. Blood soaked the earth. In the blink of an eye, the land within 100 miles was razed to the ground, and not a single blade of grass was left. But it did not stop. The destructive airwaves were like an irresistible plague, spreading further and further away. Dongqing and the others used all of their strength to fight back. However, in the end they were still swept away by the airwaves and were sent flying. Some fell to the ground, creating huge pits, and some crashed into giant mountains. Their bodies cracked and blood rained down. This is too terrifying. The enforcers were extremely shocked. They were already very powerful in the Great Qin Empire, and they could be considered to be at the top of the pyramid. However, compared to the god of war, they were as small as ants. No, they were even worse than ants. High up in the sky, the wind whistled, and the divine aura shook the sky. The mountains and rivers outside had been destroyed, but the hinterland and the stone tablet were intact. Especially the stone tablet. No matter how fierce the battle between Ren Duxing and the State Master was, it did not shake at all. All of this seemed slow, but it all happened in an instant. Ren Duxing and the State Master had also decided who was the better one. Although Ren Duxing was once a real god of war, the State Master, who was a fake god, still had the upper hand at this moment. Because now Ren Duxing's most powerful means were his divine artifacts and divine sense. But now, the State Master had mastered a divine art that was not inferior to a divine artifact. As for his divine sense, after all these years of cultivation, although his divine sense was much stronger than before, it was still incomplete. He had not condensed a complete divine sense. The divine sense was the same as the divine body. Without a complete divine sense, one would not be able to exert all his strength. In addition, he had used up a lot of divine sense to revive the 2 divine artifacts in the hinterland. Then, he fought with the State Master and used up some more divine sense. So now, he did not dare to overuse his divine sense. Because once his divine sense was exhausted, his divine sense would be destroyed. In other words, Ren Duxing's strongest means were no longer effective. Besides his divine sense and divine artifacts, he did not have the upper hand at all. For example, his physical body. The State Master was a fake god, so his physical body was also equivalent to a divine body. But Ren Duxing was only a mortal now. And divine power. The State Master had the power of a fake god. And Ren Duxing only had battle chi in his body. There was a huge gap between battle chi and the power of a fake god. Other than that, there was the divine art in battle soul. Ren Duxing definitely had a divine art, but he did not have divine power now. It was possible to use battle chi to evolve the divine art. For example, Qin Feiyang's dragon god art and 6-word divine art. But the power they could exert was probably less than 1% of the peak power of the divine art. As for the battle soul, the 2 of them were even more incomparable now. So, if they continued to fight, even if Ren Duxing was once a war god who had surpassed the false god, he would still lose without a doubt. Unless at the same time he would revive the battle sword and the magic crystal. With the power of the 2 divine artifacts, he would kill the State Master. But he didn't dare. Moreover, even if he revived the battle sword and the magic crystal at the same time, it was hard to guarantee that the State Master didn't have any other means to contend against him. After all, as the teacher of the current emperor, the State Master's methods would definitely not be so simple. The State Master wants to know, who exactly are you? You actually have a divine artifact. The State Master glanced at Ren Duxing and stared at the red battle sword in Ren Duxing's hand. His nature was exposed, and his eyes were filled with greed. Who am I? Haha, Ren Duxing laughed loudly, his long hair fluttering in the wind, his clothes fluttering, and his entire body emitting an astonishing domineering aura. The State Master raised his eyebrows. Ren Duxing stopped laughing, stared at the State Master with an arrogant smile, and said, "Didn't Qin Feiyang tell you?" Qin Feiyang? The State Master's expression froze. Suddenly, he remembered what Qin Feiyang had said at that time. His old eyes suddenly stared, and he said in surprise, "You are Mu Tianyang." "Yes, it is this emperor." Ren Duxing's body shook, and a vast emperor's might, like a torrent of beasts, surged out in all directions. The State Master's eyes trembled. Originally, he thought that Mu Tianyang's return was just a lie made up by Qin Feiyang to divert everyone's attention. But he didn't expect that the previous emperor would actually come back. Mu Tianyang. In the distance. Feeling the terrifying emperor's might, the group of law enforcers was instantly in a mess. In fact, very few people in the Great Qin Empire knew the name Mu Tianyang. First, Mu Tianyang was the previous emperor, and the current emperor would definitely not allow the name Mu Tianyang to spread to the world. Second, in the past, when the Tianyang Empire was still around, everyone basically called Mu Tianyang the Tianyang war god, or the emperor. So slowly, the name Mu Tianyang was forgotten by the world. But as a member of the Law Enforcement Hall, and as an internal law enforcer who held the imperial capital's top secrets, he naturally knew who Mu Tianyang was. He was a supreme expert who could fight with the first emperor. How could they not panic? Run Duxing glanced at the law enforcers, and looked at the state master with a sneer. It seems that this emperor's name has not been forgotten by you. I don't believe it. The state master shook his head. He was still firm in his thoughts. Mu Tianyang was already dead, and it was impossible for him to come back. You don't believe it? Haha. Then this emperor would like to ask you, in today's world, other than this emperor, who has the ability to control 2 divine artifacts? Ren Duxing laughed wildly. 2 divine artifacts. The state master was bewildered. Boom! Ren Duxing waved his hand, and the demon crystal appeared. Immediately, a black hurricane roared out, and the demonic power surged. This is... The state master's eyes widened as he stared at the demon crystal. Doesn't it look familiar? I believe that there should be a detailed record of the demon crystal in the history books of your great Qin Empire. Ren Duxing joked. It's actually a demon crystal, the state master muttered to himself, his old face full of disbelief. In the emperor's study, there was a very ancient history book that was regarded as a treasure by the previous emperors and passed down from generation to generation. Besides the previous emperors, only he had seen it in the great Qin Empire. There was indeed a record of the demon crystal in it. According to the records, the demon crystal was a divine artifact that could control the storm and gravity. It was an item of the first emperor, but how did it fall into the hands of Mu Tianyang? Woo-woo. Rumble. Just as the state master fell into deep disbelief and was unable to extricate himself, Ren Duxing decisively activated the demon crystal. In an instant, a terrifying gravitational force surged out in all directions with the force of an avalanche. A huge cage was formed in an instant, trapping the imperial tutor inside. Inside the cage, the black hurricane roared, exuding a destructive power. Lord, you mustn't. The 4 sacred beasts roared anxiously in the distance. But Ren Duxing turned a deaf ear. A wisp of divine sense emerged. Clang! The red battle sword awakened again, buzzing and trembling in the air above his head, and the sword chi was endless. The state master quivered and finally regained his senses. Chapter 1176. Die! Run Duxing roared, his hair stood on end, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. The battle sword and demon crystal clanged. Waves of sword chi and black storms roared in the sky and charged toward the imperial tutor. Facing the 2 divine artifacts, the imperial tutor couldn't help but feel a chill all over his body. Boom! He used the divine art again, and the full moon rose slowly, emitting a dazzling divine light. At the same time, he took a step forward, but he was shocked to find that his feet seemed to have sunk into a quagmire, and he couldn't move an inch. What's going on? He looked at the demon crystal and the battle sword in surprise. Ren Duxing sneered. This is another great divine power of the demon crystal, the gravity domain. Not to mention a mere false god like you, even a real war god would be affected if he enters the gravity prison. Gravity domain. The imperial tutor's face was gloomy. If he couldn't move, it was equivalent to a fish on the chopping board, and he could only be slaughtered. Haha. Back then, when Qin Badian used the demon crystal to suppress me, he probably didn't expect that one day I would use this demon crystal to suppress his subjects. Ren Duxing laughed heartily. The imperial tutor looked at him gloomily and suddenly laughed. You're too proud of yourself. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, a mighty divine power broke out of his body, with the imperial tutor as the center, rolling in all directions. Ren Duxing was surprised. You're not the only one who has a divine artifact, I have one too. The imperial tutor sneered, and a white divine light swept out from his body and floated above his head. It was a jade pendant the size of a palm, the shape of a flame, crystal clear without any flaws, emitting a bright light. That's... Ren Duxing's eyes widened in anger. The imperial tutor sneered. I believe you should have seen this jade pendant before. Damn it. He actually left you a divine artifact. Damn Qin Badian, are you going to go against me even in death? Ren Duxing roared again and again, his face extremely ferocious. From his words, it was not hard to tell that the original owner of this jade pendant was also the first emperor. You are no longer the Mu Tianyang from back then. Now, it is no longer the era that you rule. Remember, it's the great Qin Empire now. You Mu Tianyang are nothing but a stray dog struggling at death's door. The imperial preceptor sneered and shouted, "Revive!" His quasi-divinity energy surged into the jade pendant. Rumble! The jade pendant suddenly emitted a divine light. It buzzed and trembled. Flames rolled out, turning the void into a sea of fire. However, the strange thing was that this flame was not red but white. Furthermore, he couldn't feel the slightest bit of heat from the flames. Instead, he felt a great sense of danger. In the blink of an eye, the battle sword and magic crystal had already arrived. Dongqing and the others had already retreated thousands of miles away. However, even though they were so far away, the aura that covered the sky and covered the earth caused them to be uncontrollably alarmed. Because they were too far away, they could no longer see the imperial preceptor and Renduxing. They could only hear the rumbling from the sky. Even further away, in the sky above a river, a blood-red light streaked across the sky and rushed to the deepest part. It was the inner demons. At this moment, his cultivation had risen to a 5-star combat emperor. His whole body seemed to be bathed in blood and emitted a shocking murderous aura. His current position was still very far from the hinterland. It would take him at least 4 to 6 hours to reach there. But even so, he could still sense the fluctuations of the battle between the imperial preceptor and Renduxing. Suddenly, he stopped and looked in the direction of the hinterland. His face was full of playfulness. "Looks like I have to get there as soon as possible. Otherwise, I will miss a wonderful show." He muttered to himself and entered the ancient castle. Mu Qing was like a dead dog lying on the ground weakly. His face was beyond recognition. Fatso was still torturing him. As for Lu Hong and the others, they were all meditating with their eyes closed. But once they sensed the aura of the inner demons, they all opened their eyes. The inner demons glanced at everyone and looked at Fatso. "Stand down." Fatso's gaze trembled. He quickly put down Mu Qing and obediently retreated to the side. If it was Qin Feiyang, he would definitely ignore him. But facing the inner demons, he did not dare to be rash. The inner demons walked in front of Mu Qing and looked down at Mu Qing. He grinned and said, "Let me tell you a piece of good news. Renduxing and the imperial preceptor are fighting." Mu Qing's expression changed slightly. He could not help but start to worry. The inner demons asked, "Do you want to save him?" "Haha, my lord is extremely powerful. How can a mere imperial preceptor shake him?" Mu Qing laughed loudly. He did not hide his sarcasm. "Yes, your lord is indeed very strong. But don't forget, he is now in a weakened state." The inner demons laughed mockingly. Hearing this, Mu Qing's laughter came to an abrupt end. As for the imperial preceptor, although he is only a pseudo-god, he is at his peak. And the fluctuations of their battle have been coming for a long time. This is enough to show that the imperial preceptor has the ability to fight with your lord. The inner demons said. Mu Qing's face became gloomier. The inner demons said, "If you want to save him, quickly use your heavenly eye to calculate their location and coordinates. Will you be so kind?" Mu Qing sneered. "Of course I'm not so kind. I'm just going to watch the show. How can I miss such a wonderful show? Of course, if I'm in a good mood, I might help your lord." The inner demons laughed. "Help." Chapter 1177. You've gone too far? How terrifying is the battle between the state preceptor and Renduxing. With boss's cultivation, once he enters the center of the battlefield, he will be instantly obliterated by the battle fluctuations. Not even his bones will be left. You're such a smart person. How can you not think of this? Fatso sneered. Mu Qing's face darkened. He shook his head and said, "I really didn't think of it. Who are you trying to fool?" Fatso was furious. He rushed forward angrily and slapped Mu Qing's face. Smack! A crisp sound of a slap was heard. Mu Qing's blood-stained face immediately swelled up, and there was a bright red palm print on it. "Fatso, you better not fall into my hands in the future." Mu Qing roared hysterically. I'm afraid you'll never have such an opportunity. Fatso sneered. Then we'll wait and see. Mu Qing laughed sinisterly, his eyes flashing with murderous intent. The inner demons waved his hand and said, let's talk about this later. Give me Dongqing and Zhongjin's coordinates. Mu Qing wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and a strange light flashed in his eyes again. Soon, he then gave the inner demon a new set of coordinates. The inner demons immediately left the ancient castle, opened a portal and walked in. Fatso also immediately took action and destroyed Mu Qing's cultivation. Following closely, painful screams could be heard in the ancient castle. Although half an hour had passed, the battle between Ren Duxing and the state preceptor was not over yet. The two of them fought fiercely in the sky. Dongqing, the four sacred beasts, and the group of enforcers each took a side and watched nervously. Whoosh! Suddenly, a blood-red figure descended above Dongqing's head. This person was the inner demons. As soon as the inner demons appeared, a terrifying murderous aura surged in all directions. Who's there? Whether it was Dongqing, the four sacred beasts, or the group of enforcers, they all immediately looked up. Immediately the group of people changed their expressions. How could it be Qin Feiyang? What's up with his cultivation level? What a powerful aura, what a terrifying murderous aura. If it weren't for the fact that he looked exactly like Qin Feiyang, they wouldn't believe that the person in front of them was Qin Feiyang. But the inner demons didn't look at them, as if it was nothing. He raised his head and looked at the sky thousands of miles away. However, it was too far away for him to see clearly. He could only hear the sounds of battle. Of course he knew about Ren Duxing. He had two divine weapons kill him. A shout suddenly exploded, and it was filled with a murderous intent that couldn't be dispersed. The inner demons raised his eyebrows and looked in the direction of the voice. He wanted to see who was so reckless. It was a burly man in black who had the cultivation of a 6-star combat emperor. The inner demons suddenly said, so it's the enforcers of the inner hall. I was wondering who had the guts to threaten to kill me. You're boasting shamelessly. Although I don't know why your cultivation suddenly became so strong, you'll definitely die in the face of so many of us. The burly man in black sneered. The inner demons looked at them one by one and laughed. You have a lot of people, but I'm afraid you can't kill me. Arrogant. The group of enforcers was furious. Boom! Waves of aura erupted like volcanoes, and the world suddenly trembled. Kill! The burly man in black roared. That moment, the group of enforcers turned into streams of light, carrying a monstrous murderous aura, and charged toward Qin Feiyang. Seeing this, Dongqing and the four sacred beasts looked at each other and quietly retreated. The current Qin Feiyang was behaving too strangely. They did not dare to act rashly before they figured it out. The inner demons naturally noticed the small movements of the man and the four sacred beasts, but he did not stop them. He only glanced at them with disdain and then looked back at the group of enforcers. There were 50 to 60 enforcers brought by the imperial tutor this time. In other words, there were 50 to 60 enforcers in front of him, and the weakest one was a 5-star combat emperor. If he did not activate the kill formula, he could only escape from such a terrifying lineup. But now, what he wanted to do was to kill them all in one fell swoop. He had planned to do so before he came. He wanted to use Ren Duxing to restrain the imperial tutor, while he took the opportunity to kill all his lackeys. The enforcers of the inner hall were the pillars of the great Qin Empire. Imagine, how would the imperial tutor and the emperor react if they lost 50 to 60 enforcers in one fell swoop? They would definitely go crazy with anger. This was the effect that Qin Feiyang wanted. Little bastard, die. The black-robed man took the lead and landed in front of the inner demons. His battle chi roared as he punched the inner demon's face. I have the power of the ancestral bloodline. You scolded me, which is equivalent to scolding the ancestral bloodline. You should be killed. The inner demon shouted coldly with an expressionless face. He raised his arm and slapped the black-robed man's fist. Golden light burst out. Ah! The black-robed man screamed on the spot as his arm was torn open. Immediately after, the inner demons pointed at the black-robed man. An invisible force turned into a vast ocean and drowned the black-robed man. In the blink of an eye, The black-robed man was torn apart by the invisible force, and his blood stained the sky. So powerful. Is he really Qin Feiyang? Dongqing and the four sacred beasts, who had retreated far away, were shocked when they saw this scene. He killed a 6-star combat emperor in less than 3 breaths. What kind of strength was this? When he left the ruins, he was only a 6-star combat saint. How did he suddenly become a 5-star combat emperor? What happened during the time when they were separated? The other enforcers were also shocked. An old man in black suddenly quivered and shouted, "He is no longer the Qin Feiyang we know. Don't hold back. Attack with all your might." Hearing this, everyone's body and mind trembled. They immediately spread out and surrounded the inner demons. They began to practice their battle arts. Boom! Clang! Roar! In an instant, battle arts that were dozens of feet long appeared in the sky. A destructive aura swept across the sky for hundreds of miles. These battle arts included all kinds of weapons and ferocious beasts. However, without exception, they were all perfect battle arts. Every battle art exuded an unparalleled ferocious power. Kill! Dozens of people looked at each other and shouted at the same time. Their killing intent soared through the sky. Boom! Dozens of perfect battle arts were like a meteor shower, attacking Qin Feiyang. So many killing moves. Is he still not dead? Dongqing whispered. However, a trace of doubt appeared in her eyes. In the face of such a situation, Qin Feiyang's expression did not change. He was not nervous or uneasy. Could it be that these 50 to 60 people together could not threaten him? One had to know. Among these 50 to 60 people, there were many 6-star combat emperors. There were even a dozen 7-star combat emperors. In the face of such a lineup, even an 8-star combat emperor would not dare to let down his guard. Let alone Qin Feiyang, who was just a 5-star combat emperor. Boom! Just as Dongqing was in doubt, the inner demon's body shook and a mighty dragon power broke out from his body. Dragon power! Dongqing's eyes trembled. That's right. This person had mastered a divine art. Although there was only one word difference between a divine art and a battle art, the difference in power was like heaven and earth. Is it the divine dragon skill? She stared at the inner demons. The inner demon's body was full of mighty dragon power. He looked around and his eyes were as cold as ice. Suddenly, the purple gold dragon aura soared into the sky. A palm-sized divine seal instantly appeared. It is indeed the first move of the divine dragon skill. Dongqing's body and mind trembled. At the same time, the group of enforcers surrounding the inner demons saw the divine dragon seal appear, and their pupils shrank. They were extremely nervous. Moreover, there was a trace of respect in their eyes. This was not respect for Qin Feiyang. It was respect for the first emperor. Don't panic. Although our battle arts are not comparable to a divine art, there are 6-star combat emperors and 7-star combat emperors among us. Their cultivation levels are much higher than his. I don't believe that we can't defeat the divine dragon seal if we join forces. An elder shouted. Hearing this, the other enforcers could not help but look forward to it. You actually want to shake the divine dragon seal. I have to say that you are really naive, but I can't blame you, because those who don't have a divine art will never know how terrifying a divine art is. The inner demons laughed and his eyes were full of contempt. Boom! Clang clang! Roar roar! In the blink of an eye, the dozens of perfect battle arts suddenly attacked. For a moment, the place was filled with a strong wind and murderous aura. The inner demons was like a god of death, standing proudly in the wind. His blood-red hair danced behind him like a river of blood. Divine dragon seal, protect my divine body. Suddenly, he raised his head and roared. The divine dragon seal soared into the sky and expanded against the wind. Purple gold light burst out like a sun above the inner demon's head. Immediately, wisps of godly light fell from the sky, forming a purple golden light screen that was 3 feet wide. Qin Feiyang stood in the middle of the purple gold light screen and glanced at the enforcers disdainfully. Boom! The next moment, the dozens of perfect battle arts all blasted on the purple gold light screen. In an instant, there was an explosion of endless light. The figure of the inner demons was drowned in the light. Dongqing shook her head and said, even if the divine dragon technique is a divine art, you shouldn't be so arrogant. No. Sage Monkey shook his head. What do you mean? Dongqing was surprised. She thought that even if Qin Feiyang didn't die this time, he would pay a heavy price. She didn't expect Sage Monkey to reject her idea. You don't know how powerful the Divine Dragon technique is. Even if there are hundreds of perfect battle arts, they won't be able to hurt Qin Feiyang at all, Sage Monkey said in a deep voice. His eyes were full of envy for Qin Feiyang. So powerful? Dongqing was stunned. The power of the Divine Dragon technique is not something you can imagine. Qin Feiyang's cultivation is not enough now. He can't unleash the true power of the Divine Dragon technique. Sage Monkey said. That's right. The Divine Dragon technique you see now is probably less than 1% of its true power. Sage Eagle said with fear in his eyes. Yes. Back then when Qin Badian used the Divine Dragon technique, the world trembled and everything surrendered. No one dared to fight with him. To be honest, although we are mortal enemies, sometimes we really admire him for being able to create such a terrifying divine art. Sage Lion and Sage Python also sighed. She did not doubt it. This was because Zhang Jin's cultivation had far surpassed Qin Feiyang's. However, now that she had seen Qin Feiyang's true strength, she could not help but wonder if Zhang Jin could really do it in the face of such a demon-level existence. That's all. The inner demon shook his head and glanced at those law enforcement officers who were in a sorry state. His face was full of contempt. Those law enforcement officers also got up one after another and gathered together. They raised their heads and stared at the inner demons gloomily. Suddenly, one of the black-robed old women had a look of surprise on her face. What's wrong? The other law enforcement officers looked at her suspiciously. The black-robed old woman said in a low voice, "Look at his glabella." Everyone was stunned and looked over. They found that there was a bloody word kill between Qin Feiyang's glabella. However, this was not the main point. The main point was that the word kill was actually absorbing the blood of their dead companions. What is he doing? The group of people was very surprised and bewildered. Boom! Suddenly, the word kill between the inner demons' glabella shot out a dazzling bloody light. The next moment, his cultivation level soared to a 6-star combat emperor. This also meant that the kill word had been fully activated. Looking at this scene, whether it was Dongqing, the 4 sacred beasts, or the law enforcement officers, they were all dumbfounded. Could it be that the change in Qin Feiyang's cultivation level was related to the word kill? The next moment, the group of law enforcement officers turned around and ran for their lives. That's right. They were scared. After seeing the power of the Divine Dragon seal, they no longer had the desire to fight. At this moment, seeing that Qin Feiyang's cultivation level had increased by a small level, they naturally did not dare to continue fighting. Now there was only fear and despair in their minds. Is this all the law enforcement officers of the inner hall can do? This is so disappointing. The inner demon shook his head and muttered. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Whoosh! He used the phantom steps and left behind a series of afterimages. He was like the god of death descending to the world, ruthlessly hunting down those law enforcement officers. No, I beg you. Every time he stopped, a law enforcement officer's blood splattered on the spot. Desperate screams resounded throughout the sky and earth. In less than 100 breaths, there were only 10 law enforcement officers left out of the 50 or 60. They were all 7-star combat emperors, but facing Qin Feiyang at this moment, they did not have the slightest courage to resist and fled for their lives. Seeing the inner demons following closely, a black-clothed elder shouted in horror, "Qin Feiyang, don't force us." "So what if I force you?" The inner demons sneered. The other 8 people took a deep look at the black-clothed elder. They also turned around and ran for their lives. The inner demons looked at the 9 people and looked at the black-clothed elder. His face was full of sarcasm. "Little bastard, go to hell together." The black-clothed elder smiled coldly. His body suddenly exploded in the void. Chapter 1179. The self-destruction of a 7-star combat emperor was terrifying. It was no exaggeration to say that even a 9-star combat emperor would not be able to escape death. But the inner demons was not nervous at all. Swish! In an instant, He disappeared in the void. Saint Monkey sighed. It's no problem to use self-destruction to kill others, but it won't work on Qin Feiyong. Yes. Dong Qing nodded. Qin Feiyong had the castle. Even if all of them self-destructed together, it would not be a threat to him. Of course, everyone understood that the black-clothed old man's self-destruction was not to kill Qin Feiyong, but to buy time for his companions to escape. Elder Wu, don't worry, you won't die in vain. The old woman and the others who had fled to the distance looked back at the place where the black-clothed old man had self-destructed, their eyes flashing with hatred. Return to the imperial capital immediately and report this to His Majesty. The old woman opened a portal. The imperial preceptor was restrained by Renduxing, and could not protect himself, so they could only leave the Magic Dragon Mountain range and return to the imperial capital to get reinforcements. Seeing this, Saint Monkey's expression changed and he shouted, "We can't let them leave, otherwise when the reinforcements from the imperial capital arrive, not only will Qin Feiyong be in danger, but we will also be in trouble. Don't worry, Qin Feiyong will not let them return to the imperial capital alive. Right now what I'm worried about is that after we kill those law enforcers, Qin Feiyong might also kill us," Dong Qing said worriedly. Saint Eagle said, "Don't panic, act according to the situation." During the conversation, the old woman and the others had already entered the portal. This time, the inner demons also appeared. He stood on the broken ground below, looking at the portal in the distance, his eyes flickering. It was definitely too late to intercept them now. But it was impossible to slip away from his hands. Swish. He waved his hand, opened a portal and walked in without looking back. When the portal dissipated, Dong Qing and the 4 Saint Beasts breathed a sigh of relief. Dong Qing said, "He must have gone to intercept those 9 people. What should we do now?" Sage Monkey said in a deep voice, "Let's find a place to hide first. When His Majesty kills the Imperial Preceptor, we won't have to be afraid of him anymore." 1 man and 4 beasts immediately soared into the sky and rushed towards a forest. They had been scared out of their wits by the inner demons. Without Renduxing, they didn't dare to face the inner demons. In the sky above the capital of He State, whoosh, a blood-red figure appeared out of thin air. It was none other than the inner demons Qin Feiyong. Surging murderous aura covered the sky and covered the earth. The entire city was immediately engulfed in a sea of killing intent. Everyone was alarmed and terrified. Everyone was in danger. Who? A loud shout was heard. A black-clothed young man flew into the sky with a serious expression on his face. It was precisely Tan Wu. After parting ways with Qin Feiyong, he went straight back to the city to visit his friends and family. At this very moment, he was drinking with some friends in a restaurant. However, he did not expect that a murderous aura would suddenly descend. This murderous aura made even him feel fear. However, when he flew into the sky and saw Qin Feiyong, a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. Was this Qin Feiyong? The inner demon said telepathically, "Give me the coordinates of the teleportation altar from He State to the imperial capital immediately." Tanwu was surprised. Cut the crap, hurry up. The inner demons thought to himself, a bloody light surging in his eyes. Tanwu's eyes flashed, and he immediately gave the inner demons the coordinates secretly. The inner demons also immediately opened the teleportation portal and walked in. What a terrifying murderous aura. Is he Qin Feiyong? Why is he different from the last time he appeared? 5 or 6 young men and women flew into the sky and stood beside Tan Wu, asking with lingering fear. Tan Wu shook his head. The Qin Feiyong who had just appeared, except for the same face, was completely different from the Qin Feiyong of the past. Therefore he couldn't be sure. A young woman asked, "Then what did he come to the city for?" Tan Wu said, "I don't know." He left without saying a word. Now he definitely had to cut ties with Qin Feiyong, otherwise a disaster would befall him. In a canyon, a white-haired old man and a middle-aged man stood side by side on a mountain peak, looking a little upset. These 2 people. The white-haired old man was Tan Wu's master, the previous mansion master. The middle-aged man was the current mansion master. And the one who made them upset was Qin Feiyong. They couldn't understand why Qin Feiyong suddenly came to their He State. Swish! Suddenly, 9 bloody figures appeared. It was the old woman and the others. What happened? Seeing the 9 people, the 2 men's faces changed, and they hurried to greet them. How could the old woman and the others have the mood to pay attention to them now? After appearing, they immediately rushed down. In the middle of the canyon, there was a small wooden house, and the teleportation altar was under this small wooden house. The 9 people rushed into the small wooden house one after another. What's the situation? The white-haired old man and the middle-aged man stood above the canyon, looking at each other. Under the small wooden house there was a secret room. The teleportation altar stood in the middle of the secret room, emitting a cold luster. The old woman and the others entered the secret room, looked at each other, and immediately activated their battle chi to revive the teleportation altar. Boom! The storm outside gradually calmed down. Master, Mansion Master, where are you? Suddenly, an anxious shout could be heard in the castle. The inner demons finally raised his head, glanced at the white-haired old man and the middle-aged man, and then left the ancient castle. He immediately saw Tanwu standing alone in the sky, his face full of anxiety. Tanwu also sensed the inner demon's aura at the first moment. He immediately rushed to the front of the inner demons, grabbed the inner demon's clothes and roared, "Why are you doing this? What do you mean?" The inner demons raised his eyebrows. "You were the only one who came here previously. If you didn't do all of this, who did it? Tell me immediately, have you already killed my master and the mansion master?" Tanwu roared, his eyes bloodshot. It could be seen that he cared a lot about the white-haired old man and the middle-aged man. The inner demon said expressionlessly, "If I say that I've already killed them, what do you want?" Tanwu's face turned pale as he roared hysterically, "What did they do wrong? Why are you treating them like this? Answer my question." The inner demon shouted with a majesty that could not be defied. Tanwu said word by word, "If you really killed them, I definitely won't let it go. Even though old Senior Qin has groomed me. Not bad, you have a backbone." The inner demons nodded. With a wave of his hand, the white-robed old man and the middle-aged man appeared out of thin air. "Master? Mansion Master." Seeing the 2 of them appear unscathed, Tanwu could not help but be stunned. "You have to thank me. If not for me, they would already be dead." The inner demon smiled coldly. Then, he opened the teleportation gate and left without looking back. Tanwu glanced at the teleportation gate, turned to look at the white-haired old man, and asked, "Master, what's going on?" The 2 of them were still in a daze. "Master!" Tanwu shouted loudly. The white-haired old man's body trembled before he came back to his senses. He looked at Tanwu and said, "Why are you here?" Tanwu said, "Just now, I was in the state capital and sensed a very terrifying destructive fluctuation coming from here. So I rushed over to take a look. What exactly happened?" "It's Qin Feiyang. He's chasing after the enforcers of the temple. Those 9 enforcers even self-destructed," the white-haired old man whispered. At the thought of Qin Feiyang's methods back then, he could not help but tremble. His old face was also filled with fear that could not be resolved. Chasing after enforcers, self-destructing. When Tanwu heard this, his brows furrowed tightly together. But very soon, he thought of a rough idea. After all, he knew many things and it was not hard to imagine. However, he was truly shocked in his heart. Not only did he chase after the enforcers of the inner hall, he even forced them to self-destruct their bodies. When did this guy possess such tyrannical strength? Suddenly, the white-haired old man looked at Tanwu and said suspiciously, "Just now, I seem to have vaguely heard you say that someone has nurtured you. What's going on?" Tanwu's heart skipped a beat. Seeing this, a deep sense of uneasiness surged in the white-haired old man's heart as he said in a deep voice, "Are you colluding with Qin Feiyang?" No. Tanwu hurriedly waved his hands. "If not, why did he save us?" The white-haired old man frowned. This question, Tanwu's brows furrowed tightly. He really did not know how to answer. The white-haired old man said, "I want to hear the truth." The middle-aged man also looked at Tanwu with a serious expression. Tanwu rubbed his head and looked at the 2 of them. These things are very complicated and difficult to explain clearly. In short, you have to remember that everything that you saw today must be buried in your stomachs forever. Otherwise, at this point, Tanwu's gaze darkened slightly. "Otherwise what?" The two of them looked at him nervously. Tanwu said, otherwise when Qin Feiyang comes to kill you, even I won't be able to stop him. The two of them trembled. Tanwu continued, also, the people from the capital will definitely come to interrogate you. At that time, no matter what they ask, you have to say that you don't know. All right. The two of them nodded. Tanwu glanced at the two of them and raised his head, looking in the direction of the demonic dragon mountain range. The valley was not very big, but the mountains on all sides were very majestic. At this moment, Dongqing and the four sacred beasts were standing on top of a mountain on the right side of the valley, watching the inner demons and Wolf King from afar. But suddenly, seeing the inner demons and Wolf King disappear, Dongqing's heart skipped a beat. Where did they go? The sage monkey said, that goes without saying. He must have gone to the castle. No. Dongqing shook her head. What do you mean? The sage monkey frowned. Dongqing said in a deep voice, if I didn't go to Iron Ox Town, I would think so too. But now it's hard to say. Iron Ox Town? The four sacred beasts were suspicious. I remember that when I was chasing after Zhang Jin, he also suddenly disappeared. We all thought that he went to the castle, but we didn't expect that in the next moment, he actually appeared in front of Zhang Jin. Dongqing said, there's such a thing? The four sacred beasts' faces changed. Yes. Dongqing nodded, then frowned and said, I'm thinking, can his castle be moved now? The four sacred beasts looked at each other. Not good. Suddenly, Dongqing's face suddenly changed, and she shouted, let's leave the magic dragon mountain range. Leave? The four sacred beasts were stunned. That's right. You saw it just now. Before Qin Feiyang disappeared, Ruffian Wolf appeared. Dongqing said, yes. Is there a problem? The four sacred beasts were puzzled. This is a big problem because Ruffian Wolf has the ability to track scent. It appeared just now. Maybe it was tracking our scent. If that's the case, then Qin Feiyang's disappearance is deliberately to deceive us, so that we don't know what he wants to do. Maybe he's already in front of us now. Dongqing scanned the void in front of her, and her eyes became incomparably sharp. Hearing this, the four sacred beasts' hair stood on end. Their eyes were full of vigilance as they scanned the void around them. If it was the previous Qin Feiyang, even if he stood in front of them, they would not be afraid. However, the current Qin Feiyang was too scary. Even if they had the body of a pseudo-god, they did not dare to be careless. The more they thought about it, the more flustered and scared they became. The sacred monkey shouted, leave the magic dragon mountain range immediately. Dongqing took out a portal and quickly opened it. The four sacred beasts immediately turned around and rushed into the portal as if they were running for their lives. Just as they were about to be teleported away, a terrifying murderous aura emerged, and the portal instantly shattered. Dongqing and the four sacred beasts immediately fell out of the shattered portal, but without any delay, they immediately gathered together, back to back, looking nervously at the void. The void was still empty. Dongqing, I found that I really underestimated you in the past. You can actually guess my intentions. Suddenly, a teasing voice sounded. Dongqing's face sank and she shouted, don't pretend to be mysterious, get out here. As you wish. The inner demon snickered. The next moment, the inner demons and Wolf King both appeared in the void in front of them, only 3 or 4 meters away from them. How is it? Wolf King grinned. What do you mean? Dongqing said in a deep voice. Wolf King laughed and said, the feeling of seeing hope, but instantly falling into despair. How is it? Dongqing said gloomily, you did it on purpose? Yes. In fact, we have been standing here for a long time. The reason why we didn't kill you immediately is to let you think that you can leave the magic dragon mountain range alive. Wolf King said. Dongqing's eyes were gloomy. Boom! The 4 sacred beasts suddenly went berserk and pounced toward the Wolf King. As for the current Qin Feiyang, they did not have the slightest bit of certainty. Thus they shifted their target to the ingrate. The white-eyed wolf was just a battle saint. With their strength, it would be easy to take down the white-eyed wolf. As long as they could take down the white-eyed wolf, Qin Feiyang would naturally submit. But what they didn't know was that the one controlling this body was the inner demons. Even if they captured the white-eyed wolf, the inner demons would not hesitate. Moreover, the inner demons would not give them the chance. Boom! He took a step forward and stood in front of the Wolf King. His surging aura roared. He didn't even make a move. With just a wave of his aura, the 4 sacred beasts and Dongqing were sent flying, crashing into a group of rocks behind them. Dongqing was even worse. Although her cultivation had already stepped into the War King, her physical body was far inferior to the 4 sacred beasts. After all, no matter what, the bodies of the 4 sacred beasts were all pseudo-gods. This level of impact would at most cause them pain for a while, but it wouldn't cause them any real damage. However, Dongqing, facing Qin Feiyong's current aura, was immediately covered in blood. Let's split up. She got up in a sorry state and gloomily looked at Qin Feiyong and Wolf King. Then she shouted at the 4 sacred beasts and turned around to escape. The 4 sacred beasts looked at each other and immediately turned into a stream of light, fleeing in 4 different directions. If they split up and escaped, if they were lucky, 1 or 2 of them might be able to escape. If they were to escape together, there was no doubt that they would all be wiped out. However, the idea was good, but the reality was cruel. The inner demon's body shook, and the Emperor's aura roared out, rushing toward the woman and the 4 sacred beasts. In the blink of an eye, the woman and the 4 sacred beasts were imprisoned in the void. Break for me! Dongqing roared and instantly broke the restraint of the pressure and continued to escape. Roar! Chirp! The 4 sacred beasts roared again and again, forcibly breaking through the pressure. The inner demons was slightly stunned. Then he patted his forehead and shook his head. I forgot that you have all opened the gate of potential. Dongqing must have opened the 7th level of the gate of potential. As for the 4 sacred beasts, it was even more impossible for Qin Feiyong to imprison them with his current aura. After all, they were pseudo-gods. Moreover, they had followed Mu Tianyang for a long time. They must have opened the gate of potential long ago. They might even have opened the 8th level. The inner demons waved his hand, and Yanwei, Viper, and Dan Wangkai appeared. Then the inner demons looked at the 3 of them and said indifferently, "Pick one, I will take care of the rest." Whether it was his eyes or his posture, they were full of disdain for Dongqing and the 4 sacred beasts. Yanwei glanced at the woman and the 4 sacred beasts, and his gaze locked onto Dongqing. Because the last time in the ruins, he and Dongqing had not determined the winner. Whoosh! Immediately, he used the 9 steps of the heavenly demon and chased after Dongqing. Dan Wangcai's opponent was the sacred eagle. As for Viper, he naturally chose the sacred python. The reason was very simple. The sacred python was an old poisonous creature. The inner demons glanced at the 3 of them and laughed. Then the sacred lion and the sacred monkey are my opponents. Leave the sacred lion to me, Wolf King suddenly said. The inner demons was startled. Wolf King said confidently, although my cultivation is not as good as it, I am still confident that I can restrain it. That's fine. The inner demons nodded. Boom! Wolf King activated the Berserker's Fury, and instantly turned into a muscular wolf. His aura soared as he used the Void Escape step and rushed towards the sacred lion. Not bad. It's about to grow up. The inner demons glanced at the backs of Wolf King and Yanwei, and a rare smile crept onto his face. Whoosh! Following closely, his gaze turned cold as he took a step forward and chased after the sacred monkey like lightning. The sacred monkey's cultivation had already recovered to the level of a 3-star combat emperor. With the perfect support technique, its speed was comparable to a 7-star combat emperor. However, Qin Feiyong's cultivation had already reached the level of a 7-star combat emperor under the buff of the soaring dragon art. So, when he activated the phantom steps, he appeared in front of the sacred monkey in less than 10 breaths. Seeing this, the sacred monkey's pupils constricted as it immediately turned in the air and fled in another direction. The inner demon shook his head and laughed mockingly. He took a step forward and stood in front of the sacred monkey again. The sacred monkey didn't dare to fight. It tried its best to escape, but no matter how hard it tried, it couldn't get rid of the inner demons. The inner demons teased, "A dignified fake god can only run for your life now. Do you feel especially aggrieved?" "Shut up," the sacred monkey roared. "When you were at your peak, you probably wouldn't even look at someone as weak as me, right? Actually, I didn't expect that there would be such a day where I would force a fake god to jump up and down. I feel that even if I die now, it's worth it. The inner demons chuckled and continued to torture the sacred monkey's heart. Chapter 1181. Bastard, I'll kill you. The holy monkey exploded. It stopped running away. With a roar, it turned around and swung its millstone-sized fists at the inner demons. The inner demons sneered and stepped forward to counter with a palm. Boom! The fists and palms met. The holy monkey was sent flying and crashed into the ground. With a loud boom, a deep pit appeared. But it immediately got up and rushed into the sky, laughing. I have the body of a false god. With your strength, you'll never be able to kill me. Do you understand? After saying that, it waved its fists and its battle aura was like a waterfall. 2 huge fists flew across the sky, exuding a shocking divine power. Divine art. The inner demons narrowed its eyes. He, as a former false god, is it strange to have a divine art? Go to hell. The holy monkey laughed angrily. The 2 huge fists shook violently in the void, exuding a destructive power, and blasted toward the inner demons. So what if I have a divine art? Killing you is as easy as slaughtering a dog. The inner demon smiled disdainfully and raised its hand to slap the fists. A golden light surged out and covered the sky. It was dazzling. Boom! When the golden light and the 2 huge fists collided, the 2 huge fists suddenly changed sides and blasted the holy monkey's huge body like 2 mountains. The holy monkey screamed in pain and was blasted into the ground again. However, its divine body was too strong. Even after such a terrifying impact, it was not injured at all. It jumped up and looked at Qin Feiyong, laughing. I have a divine body. You can't kill me. Instead, you will be exhausted to death by me. Clang! However, before it finished speaking, an ear-piercing sound resounded in the sky. The holy monkey looked in the direction of the sound. The arrogance on its face disappeared and was replaced by fear. A dagger was floating in front of the inner demons. The dagger was pure white like a peerless jade. It was very beautiful, but no one dared to look down on such a dagger. Because it was Chang Shui. The inner demons grabbed Chang Shui and said playfully, Now, let's see if your skin is tougher or if my Chang Shui is sharper. Finish speaking. He turned into a streak of light and charged towards the saint monkey. The monkey's expression changed. One had to know. This dagger could easily cut through Mu Tianyang's divine bones, let alone a mere false god's body. It turned around and fled. The arrogance from before was gone, leaving only fear in his heart. But with its current speed, how could it escape the pursuit of the inner demons? However, the inner demons did not kill it directly. He chased after it and waved the Chang Shui. Suddenly, blood gushed out, and a wound appeared on the saint monkey's back. Blood was gushing out. This is the blood of a false god. Don't waste it. The inner demons quickly used the kill formula, and the blood flowed towards his glabella. When the blood was absorbed by the kill symbol art, he couldn't help but be startled. He found that the blood did not disappear after being absorbed by the kill formula. Instead, it was transformed into a pure energy and flowed into his body. Moreover, he could clearly feel that the energy was strengthening his body. He even found that his cultivation was increasing little by little. Although the increase was not obvious, it was there. In other words, the blood could not only strengthen his body, but also increase his cultivation. This discovery made him wild with joy. He never expected that the blood of a false god would have such a wonderful effect. Suddenly, he thought of another question. Since the blood had such an effect, wouldn't the saint monkey's flesh and blood be even more effective? He raised his head and looked at the saint monkey that was running away frantically. A bright smile appeared on his face. He had not tasted the flesh and blood of a divine beast. Whoosh! He used the phantom steps and caught up with the saint monkey in the blink of an eye. He slashed down and a piece of divine beast meat fell. The inner demons grabbed the divine beast meat, and then took out the nether devil flame. He chased after the saint monkey while roasting the divine beast meat. Very soon, the aroma of roasted meat spread out. The aroma of the divine beast meat was more fragrant than the meat of ordinary beasts. What's that smell? It smells so good. The saint monkey also smelled the aroma of the roasted meat and turned to look suspiciously. When it saw the divine beast meat in the inner demon's hands, the saint monkey was so angry that it spurted out blood. "Qin Feiyang, you've gone too far," it roared again and again. He actually roasted the meat on its body in front of it? This was too much. A warrior would rather die than be humiliated. It suddenly turned around and rushed toward the inner demons. Its fierce eyes were filled with blood. That gaze was as if it could not wait to cut the inner demons into 8 pieces and destroy their bones. However, the inner demons just glanced at it indifferently, and then lowered its head to look at the divine beast meat. Its brows were tightly knitted together. Although the aroma of the meat wafted out, this piece of divine beast meat was still raw after being roasted for so long. After all, this is divine beast meat. How can an ordinary alchemy fire cook it? I'll just have to make do with it. The inner demon shook its head and threw the piece of divine beast meat into its mouth. Immediately, an indescribable aroma overflowed in its mouth. "It smells so good." The inner demons closed its eyes and revealed an intoxicated look. And this meat contained an extremely large amount of extremely pure energy. This energy flowed along its meridians and rushed to its limbs and bones. It felt that whether it was its physical body or spirit, they were instantly sublimated. Puff. However, looking at the inner demons leisurely tasting its divine beast meat in front of it, the saint monkey was so angry that a mouthful of blood spurted out from its mouth. It was crazy. After roaming the world for tens of thousands of years, it had never suffered such humiliation. The inner demons opened its eyes and commented, "This taste is not bad. It's just that this meat is too rough." Puff. The saint monkey spat out another mouthful of blood. Its fierce eyes were blood red. "Bastard, die with me." It howled towards the sky and rushed in front of the inner demons. Without hesitation, without any nostalgia, it directly self-destructed its physical body. And the inner demons was shocked and hurriedly hid in the ancient castle. Although the saint monkey was now a 3-star combat emperor, its physical body was a real false god's body. In other words, it was equivalent to a false god's self-destruction. The self-destruction of a false god, who dared to treat it as a joke. Boom! An earth-shattering sound suddenly exploded in this place. Woo-woo! Kacha! Immediately, a violent wind blew in this area. The void crazily collapsed and the earth shook violently. It was like an unprecedented earthquake. What's the situation? At this moment, whether it was Wolf King, Yanwei, or Dongqing and the 3 Saint Beasts, they all involuntarily stopped and looked over. Without exception, when they saw the apocalyptic scene, their faces changed and they frantically ran for their lives. Rumble! Wind and thunder intertwined and the sky changed color. Within the range of their vision, the giant peaks were like rice straws in a paddy field, collapsing one after another. In an instant they turned into nothingness. What exactly happened? Where are Qin Feiyang and the Saint Monkey? Chapter 1182. At the same time, at the top of the sky, 2 divine consciousnesses surged over. It was the divine consciousnesses of the state preceptor and Ren Duxing. The explosion of the holy monkey was too powerful. Although they were thousands of miles away, they could still sense it. Therefore, they immediately released their divine consciousnesses to check the situation. Everything was within their divine consciousnesses. What's the situation? If he didn't look, he wouldn't have known, but when he did, he was shocked. The 2 of them were petrified. Where were the law enforcers? Why were they all gone? Did the holy monkey also disappear? Very soon, they found Yanwei, Wolf King, Viper, and Dan Wangkai. Of course, they knew that Wolf King and Yanwei were Qin Feiyang's men. In other words, Qin Feiyang was here. However, they did not find any trace of Qin Feiyang on the battlefield. What the hell is going on? The state preceptor murmured. Could it be that all the law enforcers were killed? How could this be possible? One had to know. The law enforcers brought here this time were at least 5-star combat emperors. With the strength of Qin Feiyang's group, even if they joined forces with Ren Duxing's subordinates, it was impossible. Suddenly, in the mountains below, a figure appeared out of thin air. It was the inner demons. He looked at Yanwei and the rest and shouted, "Why are you all standing there in a daze? End the battle quickly. When he came out of the ancient castle, he sensed the divine consciousnesses of the state preceptor and Ren Duxing. In other words, everything here had been seen by the two of them. Therefore, this battle could not be dragged on any longer. It had to be ended as soon as possible in case the two of them came here. Boom! Hearing the voice of the inner demons, Wolf King and Yanwei quivered and immediately attacked Dongqing and the three sacred beasts with all their might. Dongqing and the three sacred beasts also began to counterattack. A fierce battle began again. It is indeed Qin Feiyang. But how did his cultivation suddenly become so strong? At the top of the sky, Ren Duxing and the state preceptor were in disbelief. The kill character formula was Qin Feiyang's strongest trump card, so it had always been kept a secret. The only time he revealed it was when he stole the divine crystals and was caught by Mu Qing. In order to escape, he told Mu Qing the secret of the kill character art. However, not long after, the real spacetime portal was snatched away by the snow python. Therefore, Mu Qing had no way to inform Lu Xingqian. As such, neither Ren Duxing nor the imperial tutor knew the secret of the kill formula. Simultaneously, the inner demons glanced at Dongqing and the three holy monkeys with a cold glint in their eyes. Whoosh! Suddenly, he used Phantom Step and rushed towards Saint Lion like lightning. The white-eyed wolf's fighting soul and skills were indeed powerful, but his cultivation was not as high as the holy lion's. Seeing the inner demons charging over, the holy lion couldn't help but feel anxious. Get out of my way! With a roar, battle aura rolled out and a huge beast claw appeared out of nowhere. As soon as the beast claw appeared, the sky changed color. The terrifying divine power shook the heavens. Obviously, this was a divine art. Humph! The white-eyed wolf snorted coldly, and that huge body expanded again. In the end, it turned into a muscular wolf that was hundreds of feet long. Its ferocious power was impressive, and its aura skyrocketed. This was no longer the fury of the berserker, but the fury of the mad god. Although there was only a difference of one word, the difference in power was like heaven and earth. Because the fury of the berserker was only a superior battle art, but the fury of the mad god was a perfect battle art. Of course, compared to the holy lion's divine art, the fury of the mad god was still a long way off. However, the white-eyed wolf did not retreat at all. It waved its mountain-like fist and punched the beast's claw. Boom! Without any suspense, the white-eyed wolf's fist was instantly shattered, and flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Its huge body also cracked open, and it was dripping with blood. Like a meteorite, it smashed into the ground below. How dare you use a mere battle art to fight against a divine art? You're overestimating yourself. The holy lion smiled disdainfully, and the beast's claw slammed down, aiming at the white-eyed wolf. If this attack hit, the white-eyed wolf would definitely die. Haven't you figured it out yet? You're the ones who overestimate yourselves. However, at this moment, the inner demons descended from the sky like a divine weapon and slammed down on the white-eyed wolf. A golden light roared out. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening sound, the beast's claw immediately turned in the air and slammed into the holy lion's body. Roar! The holy lion wailed on the spot and was sent flying. However, like the holy monkey, it had the body of a false god. This kind of attack was nothing to it. However, in the face of the inner demons, it had no courage to fight, just like the holy monkey. It turned and fled. The inner demons looked down at the white-eyed wolf and frowned. Are you all right? The white-eyed wolf shook its head. It was not all right. Its injuries were very serious, and it was even life-threatening. However, it did not want to admit that it was very depressed. In the past, no matter what, it had always fought side by side with Qin Feiyang, and they had gone through thick and thin together. However, it slowly realized that it could no longer help Qin Feiyang. It had been working very hard and had been cultivating in seclusion. However, the gap between it and Qin Feiyang had not narrowed. Instead, it had widened. It was fine for a short period of time, but after a long time, even it could not help but start to doubt its own ability. It was precisely because of this that it took the initiative to ask to fight the Holy Lion. It wanted to prove itself. However, the result made it even more discouraged. If the inner demons had not saved it in time, it would have died in the hands of the Holy Lion. Looking at the white-eyed wolf, the inner demons raised its eyebrows and said lightly, With your talent, you will become an overlord of the world sooner or later. However, if you are discouraged now, your cultivation and achievements will stop here forever. And I don't need someone like you by my side." The white-eyed wolf's gaze trembled. The inner demon said, "There is still a long way to go. Whether it is me or the original body, we need you to accompany us." The white-eyed wolf looked up at the inner demons, and its eyes were filled with tears. The inner demons waved its hand impatiently and said, "Stop being so pretentious. Go to the castle and recuperate." The white-eyed wolf nodded, and its body quickly shrank. It laughed and said, "I didn't expect you to have such a gentle side." "Gentle?" The inner demon's face twitched. With a wave of its hand, it sent the white-eyed wolf to the castle. Then it looked up at the fleeing holy lion, and its eyes became extremely sharp, like the edge of a blade. "How dare you hurt my companion? How many lives do you have to kill?" He held the Chong Shui in his hand, used the phantom steps, and chased after the holy lion at lightning speed. He stomped on the holy lion's back. The holy lion's huge body suddenly fell down involuntarily. The holy lion panicked and roared in horror, "What are you doing?" And the holy lion, "What did you do to it?" "It was too weak. I only roasted a piece of its meat, and it self-destructed." The inner demon snickered. "What? Self-destruction?" The holy lion's gaze trembled. At the top of the sky, Renduxing could not help but tremble. Not only could he observe the situation below with his divine sense, but he could also hear Qin Feiyang's voice. He actually forced the holy lion to self-destruct its divine body. He was furious. Swoosh! He directly abandoned the imperial advisor, turned into a stream of light, and rushed down with the two divine artifacts. "Where do you want to go?" However, with a flash, the imperial advisor appeared in front of Renduxing and sneered. "Get lost!" Renduxing roared, his divine sense surged, and the two divine artifacts with the power to destroy the world rushed towards the imperial advisor. "Seeing your subordinates being killed one by one, you must be very anxious." Despair. The imperial advisor smiled coldly. The full moon rose, the jade pendant awakened, and collided with the two divine artifacts. Boom! The two's bodies shook, blood spurted out, and they each retreated a few hundred feet. Renduxing shouted, "Not to mention me, those lackeys you brought. I'm afraid they have already died in his hands." The imperial advisor's eyes darkened slightly, and he snorted coldly, "Even if what you said is true, it doesn't matter, because now we only have one common enemy, and that is you." Finished. The imperial advisor took the initiative to attack Renduxing. "Haha. For me, you actually joined forces with Qin Feiyang. You are really magnanimous." Renduxing laughed loudly, full of ridicule. "Don't treat this imperial advisor as a fool. Your little trick of sowing discord is useless." The imperial advisor sneered. Boom! A divine battle once again broke out in the sky. Below, accompanied by a loud bang, the holy lion smashed heavily into the ground, and all the bones in its body were about to fall apart. The inner demons was still standing on its back, like a demon god, causing people to tremble. "No one will have any objections if you kill the monkey, but why do you have to humiliate it?" The holy lion roared. "Humiliate?" The inner demons was taken aback. The holy lion roared. "You roasted its meat in front of it. Isn't that humiliating? You can't be so shameless. It turns out that you are also so weak. It seems that I have overestimated you, divine beasts." The inner demon shook its head, waved Chong Shui, and mercilessly slashed down. Blood splattered as Chong Shui directly entered the holy lion's mind. Ao! The holy lion howled miserably. For the first time it felt the aura of death. The inner demons laughed. "Don't worry, after you die, I will take good care of your divine meat, such as marinating, roasting, stewing. You demon, I will fight it out with you." The holy lion roared crazily, and a destructive aura rushed out from its body. Although the holy lion's cultivation had not recovered to the level of a war emperor, as a pseudo-god, it could still self-destruct. "Do you think I will give you the chance to self-destruct?" The inner demon sneered, let go of Chong Shui, and then slapped the handle of Chong Shui's blade. The Chong Shui was like a sharp arrow, penetrating the holy lion's head from the front to the back, and blood spurted out like a fountain. and the sea of consciousness and soul were shattered on the spot. Bang! The holy lion immediately fell to the ground, dead, and breathed its last. Damn it! Qin Feiyang, we will not let you go even if we become ghosts. Seeing that the holy lion was also killed by the inner demons, the holy eagle and holy python that were fighting with Dan Wangkai and Viper immediately flew into a rage. At the same time, their hearts were flooded with fear and despair. Facing the current Qin Feiyang, did they really have a chance of winning? Boom! Viper and Dan Wangkai looked at each other from a distance. Taking advantage of the holy eagle and holy python's distraction, they punched the two beasts' heads with all their strength. The two beasts immediately howled miserably and smashed into the ground below. For a moment, the ground cracked and dust covered the sky. Who's next? At the same time, the inner demons grabbed Chang Shui, stood up, and looked at the two holy beasts and Dong Qing, with a strong bloody light in his eyes. Facing the inner demon's gaze, Dong Qing's body and mind trembled, and her face was pale. The two holy beasts were also trembling. He was too strong. The current Qin Feiyang was already ridiculously strong, and he also had the indestructible Chang Shui in his hand. How could they fight against him? In the end, the inner demon's gaze was fixed on the holy eagle. Boom! He stepped into the air and said coldly, 10,000 years ago, the first emperor was merciful and spared your lives. You should cherish it. He, the holy eagle, laughed, but it was incomparably miserable. It seemed that this time it was really the end of the road. Chapter 1183. The sacred python glanced at the sacred eagle and also soared into the sky. It looked at the inner demons and said, Eagle is right. In time, even if you don't surpass Qin Badian, you can at least become an existence on the same level as Qin Badian. The inner demons raised its eyebrows. At this time, shouldn't the two sacred beasts be afraid and beg for mercy? Why were they still so calm? The sacred python and the sacred eagle looked at each other from a distance, and a smile appeared in their eyes. There was a trace of relief in this smile. Immediately, the sacred eagle looked at the inner demons again and said, We also admit that as long as the castle is in our hands, no matter what we do, we won't be able to kill you, but, speaking of which, the sacred eagle's eyes suddenly became sharp, and it laughed sinisterly. But we can kill your companions and make you suffer for the rest of your life, blaming yourself. The inner demons was shocked. Looking at the two sacred beasts' eyes, its expression suddenly changed. It shouted to Dan Wangkai and Viper, They are going to self-destruct, run. What? Self-destruct. The two of them suddenly changed color. They immediately used the perfect auxiliary battle technique, turned around and fled without looking back. At the same time on the other side, hearing the inner demons' shout, Dong Qing and Yanwei also flew away at the same time. Lord, we'll take our leave first. Qin Feiyang, we will wait for you in hell. Explode. The two holy beasts roared furiously, and their bodies exploded in the void. A wave of qi that could destroy the world instantly surged out in all directions. Bastard. Ren Duxing's roar immediately resounded in the sky, filled with sorrow and killing intent that couldn't be dispersed. The inner demons was also extremely anxious. He used the phantom steps and rushed toward Viper. Because Viper was the closest to him, he would save as many as he could. The billowing air waves rushed over. Feeling the terrifying destructive power, Dan Wangkai and Viper were so scared that their faces turned ashen. Faster! The inner demons roared. The two of them used all their strength, but the air waves were getting closer and closer. Poof! Before the chi wave could even get close, the two of them were already severely injured. Blood spurted out of their mouths, and their bodies were instantly mangled. Without a doubt, if the two of them were engulfed by that wave of air, they would definitely be torn apart in an instant and turned into ashes. Master, please save us. The two could not help but call for help from the inner demons in despair. The inner demons' faces were as dark as water. Frankly speaking, when he was just born, he had no feelings for anyone, including the people around Qin Feiyang. However, after spending a long time with people like Wolf King and Viper, he had developed feelings for them that were hard to part with. At this moment, Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Yes, you don't have many friends. If Snake Viper and Dan Wangkai die, won't you be even lonelier? The inner demons answered with certainty. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, "Is that really so? You should ask yourself. You can lie, but your heart is very honest." The inner demons frowned. After some time he smiled coldly and said, "Don't confuse me. I'm your evil side. Love doesn't exist for me." "Then let's wait and see." After that, Qin Feiyong fell silent. Chapter 1184. The battle between Yin Wei and Dong Qing was quite intense. Although Yin Wei's strength had skyrocketed after following Qin Feiyong all these years, Dong Qing had also benefited a lot from following Mu Tianyang. The two's combat strength could be said to be evenly matched. But overall, Yin Wei had the upper hand. After all, Yin Wei was much older than Dong Qing. Whether it was combat experience or courage, he was far superior to Dong Qing. "Master, here it is." Soon, Viper and Dan Wangkai ran over with the Holy Lion. The inner demons glanced at the Holy Lion and laughed. "Put it in a Qingkuan bag. When the battle here is over, I'll treat you to lion meat." The Holy Lion was more than 10 meters tall. If it was put in the castle, it would take up a lot of space, so it could only be put in a Qingkuan bag. Heard. Viper and Dong Qing's eyes lit up. The Holy Lion had the body of a false god, which was equivalent to a divine beast. They had never tasted a divine beast's meat before. Dan Wangkai immediately found an empty Qingkuan bag, and happily placed the Saint Lion into the Qingkuan bag. Viper said, "Master, I have a question in my heart." "What is it?" the inner demons asked expressionlessly. Viper said, "Since the 4 sacred beasts were divine beasts in the past, why didn't I see them use the power of their divine souls?" Hearing Viper's words, Dan Wangkai was slightly stunned and nodded. "Yes, where are their divine souls?" The inner demons said. "They haven't condensed their divine souls yet." "What do you mean?" The two were puzzled. The inner demons said, "Only a true god of war can condense their divine souls." "I see." The two were enlightened. Viper asked, "Then, is there no difference between a false god's soul and our soul?" "Of course there is a difference. After stepping into the false god realm, the soul will slowly transform. When it becomes a divine soul, it will be a god of war." The inner demons said. "I see. In other words, the process of the soul transformation is the false god." Dan Wangkai said. "Yes. Of course, I only have a rough understanding of it from ancient books. I don't know the details." The inner demons said. The two of them nodded. No matter how authentic the information recorded in the ancient books was, there would always be some discrepancies. In short, the existence of gods was not something they were qualified to touch at the moment. Just as the three of them were chatting, a scream suddenly rang out. The three of them hurriedly looked in the direction of the sound and saw Dong Qing crash into the ground below like a meteor. Rumble! A huge crater appeared in an instant. Yin Wei's imposing manner was like a rainbow as he rushed into the huge pit. He picked up Dong Qing like he was picking up a chick and walked to the front of the inner demons. There was a fist-sized hole in Dong Qing's lower abdomen, and blood was gushing out. His face was also deathly pale. "Not bad, you didn't disappoint me." The inner demons glanced indifferently at Yin Wei, then looked at Dong Qing contemptuously and said, "Do you think you have the right to be arrogant in front of me just because you're with Mu Tianyang?" Dong Qing's face was ferocious, full of resentment and hatred. The inner demon said disdainfully, "I destroyed your Dong family back then, and I can destroy you now. Tell me, how do you want to die?" Dong Qing remained silent, but her body was trembling uncontrollably. The inner demon sneered and said, "If you beg for mercy, maybe I'll consider letting you go. After all, Dong Zhengyang and I have a good relationship." "Don't mention him in front of me," Dong Qing roared. "Why?" The inner demon smiled mockingly. Dong Qing shouted, "He's a coward." "A coward? Haha. You're wrong about that. He once wanted to kill me to avenge the Dong family, but unfortunately, he didn't have the ability. But he's more self-aware than you are. He knows what he should do and what he shouldn't do." The inner demon sneered. Dong Qing said, "Even if what you said is true, it can't hide his cowardly and incompetent nature." "You're still wrong. He's not cowardly and incompetent. He's trying to preserve the last trace of the Dong family's bloodline. Because he's the only man left in the Dong family, It can be said that the burden and responsibility he carries far surpasses yours. As for you, you look very courageous and admirable, but in fact you're the most ignorant, stupid and irresponsible. The inner demon sneered. Dongqing flew into a rage out of humiliation and shouted, "You're a demon who kills without blinking an eye. What right do you have to judge me? I don't know if others are qualified, but I know that I'm the most qualified. Because all of this was started by the Dong family. If the Dong family had been more down to earth and not so aggressive back then, would it have fallen to this point? So you have no right to resent others, including me," the inner demon said blandly. Dongqing was silent for a long time. Then she shook her head and said, "Cut the crap. I, Dongqing, am a woman of my words. You can punish me however you want if I lose. You've got a backbone." The inner demons nodded with a smile and said, "But I have another question. Where's Zhang Jin?" He hadn't seen Zhang Jin since he arrived here. Zhang Jin should be with Ren Duxing, but why wasn't he here? Could it be that he was ordered by Ren Duxing to complete some other task? No comment. Dongqing closed her eyes and said, "I'm not afraid of stubbornness." The inner demon smiled coldly and looked at Yen Wei. "Take him to the castle and let Fatso interrogate him." "Okay." Yen Wei nodded. The inner demons waved his hand and sent Yen Wei, Dongqing, Viper and Dan Wangkai to the castle. Both of them were seriously injured and needed to recuperate. Moreover, their opponents now were Ren Duxing and the State Preceptor. Chapter 1185. At the top of the clouds. Above the firmament. Boom! Clang! The divine weapons and divine arts collided continuously. A terrifying storm tore through the starry sky. It was a scene of destruction. At this moment, if an ordinary person entered the firmament, they would probably be destroyed instantly. Without Chang Shue's protection, the inner demons would not dare to go up. Soon, the inner demons broke through the clouds and stood at the top of the clouds. What entered their sight was a vast starry sky. Somewhere in the starry sky, Ren Duxing and the Grand Tutor stood opposite each other. The divine weapons and divine arts collided violently. Waves of destructive aura swept out in all directions like raging waves hitting the shore. Both of them were dripping with blood, and their faces were full of weakness. The inner demons observed for a while and sneered. "Looks like they're both at the end of their rope." Even so, the battle between Ren Duxing and the Grand Tutor was not something he could interfere with. Qin Feiyang. Suddenly, the two of them also sensed the inner demon's aura. They stopped at the same time and turned to look at the inner demons. "Don't stop. Continue." The inner demons crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked like he was watching a show. Ren Duxing said in a deep voice, "You killed Dongqing and the 4 sacred beasts?" "That's right." The inner demons nodded. Ren Duxing's eyes were filled with coldness. He said angrily, "I shouldn't have let you live." The inner demon said disdainfully, "Don't talk big. Even if I'm standing here, you may not be able to kill me." Ren Duxing looked at Chang Shui, who was above the inner demons. His pupils shrank, and he did not hide his greed. The Grand Tutor's eyes were also full of greed. Jackals of the same tribe. The inner demon snorted and looked at Ren Duxing. "By the way, let me tell you something. The dragon claw is already in my hands." "What?" Ren Duxing's eyes froze. "Looks like you care a lot. However, don't expect me to hand over what's in my hands." The inner demon laughed. Her smile was very bright. "Pooh." Ren Duxing spat out a mouthful of blood. This was anger attacking the heart. It was a mixture of regret and hatred. If he had killed this kid in the land of ruins, how could this have happened? The inner demons exclaimed, "Aya, don't be so agitated. It's not good to hurt your body." "I'll kill you." Ren Duxing roared angrily and dragged his bloody body toward Qin Feiyang. "Your opponent is me." The State Preceptor stepped in front of Ren Duxing, his eyes flashing coldly. The inner demons were astonished. This old thing would actually help him? What was going on? "This old man is helping you out of consideration for the bigger picture. Mu Tianyang's existence is not only a threat to us, but also to the great Qin Empire. We can't let him leave alive. Quickly join forces with this old man and kill him." The battle sword fell and blood gushed out. The State Preceptor's right arm was cut off on the spot. "Ah!" He endured the pain and quickly retreated far away, staring at Ron Duxing vigilantly. Whoosh! The jade pendant turned into a divine rainbow and returned to the top of his head, hanging down strands of divine light to protect him. What a pity! Ron Duxing shook his head. While the two of them were talking, Ron Duxing opened a portal and sneered, "Go back and tell your emperor that I will be back sooner or later." After saying that, Ron Duxing then turned around and darted into the portal with the inner demon and the magic crystal. That gravitational force also dissipated. The Imperial Preceptor and Old Man Qin immediately activated the power of the false god and blasted the portal, but they were still a step too late. The inner demons and Ron Duxing were teleported away. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! The Imperial Preceptor cursed and flew into a rage. Mu Tianyang was the emperor of the previous dynasty, and was an existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the late emperor. Letting him escape was equivalent to letting a tiger return to the mountain. Old Man Qin sighed, "It's my fault. If I had come earlier, you wouldn't have been injured so badly, and Mu Tianyang wouldn't have escaped." The Imperial Preceptor glanced at him and said, "Don't say that. If you hadn't come in time, I would have definitely died in their hands." "Them?" Old Man Qin raised his eyebrows and said, "You mean Qin Feiyang has already joined forces with Mu Tianyang?" "Yes. I have already told His Majesty to get rid of him as soon as possible, but His Majesty was merciful. It's great now, isn't it? He and Mu Tianyang are in cahoots. Mu Tianyang is already troublesome enough. Now with this little bastard, there will be endless trouble." The Imperial Preceptor said angrily. Old Man Qin frowned. The Imperial Preceptor's eyes flickered slightly as he asked suspiciously, "But speaking of which, how did you know we were here? Are you following me?" "I followed you? You think too much. I just felt uneasy seeing that you guys haven't returned for so long. So I came to Hezhou to take a look. By the way, where are the enforcers you brought?" Old Man Qin asked. "They." The Imperial Preceptor closed his eyes in pain and sighed. "They probably all died in the hands of Qin Feiyang." This time he wasn't pretending, because those enforcers were his trusted subordinates. It would be strange if he didn't feel heartache when so many of them died. Old Man Qin patted his shoulder and comforted him. "Don't be sad. Let's go back and tell His Majesty about this and let him decide." The Imperial Preceptor nodded. At the same time, spiritual state, desert of death. It was as hot as ever. Strong winds blew and yellow sand filled the sky. In the desert, the traces of beasts were hard to find, and only one or two figures could be seen occasionally. Swish! Suddenly, two figures appeared out of thin air above a sand dune. It was the inner demons and Ron Duxing. Ron Duxing put away the magic crystal, glanced at the desert below and asked, "Do you still know where this place is?" "Of course," the inner demons said lightly. Ron Duxing said, "We should have officially met here, right?" "Yes." The inner demons nodded. Ron Duxing said, "How have I treated you?" The inner demons was stunned and said, "Not bad." "Then why did you betray me?" Ron Duxing suddenly raised his head, stared at the inner demons angrily, and slapped at the inner demons. This change was very sudden, but the inner demons wasn't surprised at all. He raised his hand and punched. Boom! Ron Duxing was sent flying on the spot, blood gushing out of his mouth. "You dare to attack me without using your divine sense or artifact. Do you want to die?" The inner demon smiled in disdain. Ron Duxing stabilized his body and stared at the inner demons with a gloomy expression, letting the blood splatter. The inner demon smiled mockingly and said lightly, "After fighting with the Grand Master for so long, you shouldn't have much divine sense left. Killing you is still not a problem." Ron Duxing said word by word, his eyes full of murderous intent. "Then you can try." The inner demons crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at him provocatively. Ron Duxing clenched his fists, his eyes flashing with a shocking cold light. After a long time he took a deep breath and sneered. "If I didn't give you the pill scripture back then, would you have today's achievements? Is this how you repay your benefactor? Give it to me?" The inner demon smiled and said, "Don't get it wrong. I got the pill scripture with my own ability." What a joke. If I wanted to get the pill scripture back then, it would be easy. Ren Duxing shouted. You're the one who's joking. After I got the pill scripture back then, I kept it in the castle. Without my permission, can you enter the castle? I don't think so. So don't say such high-sounding words. It will only make you more ridiculous and funny. The inner demon said lightly. Ren Duxing was about to explode. He held back his anger and nodded. Okay, let's not talk about the pill scripture for now. Let's talk about how I let you go in the ruins out of kindness. Why are you betraying me now? Betraying you? The inner demons was stunned. Ren Duxing said angrily. You dare say that you didn't call the Grand Master and Elder Qin? That's right, I called the Grand Master here. My purpose is very simple. I want you to fight until both sides are injured, and then I'll take advantage of the situation. Unfortunately, I'm still too young and underestimated you. Old monsters like you who have lived for tens of thousands of years cherish your lives more than anyone else. How can you really fight to the death? But even if I don't get rid of you, I've already profited this time. Not only did I kill Dongqing and the 4 sacred beasts, but I also killed 50 or 60 inner hall enforcers. You don't care about Dongqing's death, but the 4 sacred beasts' death must be very painful for you. The inner demon said with a playful smile. Ren Duxing clenched his hands tightly. The 4 sacred beasts were loyal to him. In the early years, they accompanied him on expeditions. They were not only his most trusted subordinates, but also his partners. Thinking back when he fought with Qin Badian, the 4 sacred beasts didn't die, but now they were killed by Qin Feiyang. How could he not hate him? The inner demons looked at him coldly and said, As for Elder Qin, I'm also wondering why he came. The inner demons pondered. Could it be suddenly? His eyes trembled slightly. With a thought, the killing intent floating in his chi si emerged. This was the killing intent that Elder Qin gave him. And Ren Duxing was surprised by the killing intent. The inner demons looked at Ren Duxing and said in a deep voice, Help me see if this killing intent is still connected to Elder Qin. That time, Elder Qin told him that he had already cut off the connection with this killing intent. But now he couldn't help but wonder if Elder Qin had lied to him. Ren Duxing released a wisp of divine sense and rushed toward the killing intent. However, before he could get close, the killing intent burst out with a terrifying killing intent and blasted toward Ren Duxing's divine sense. The inner demon's expression changed and he went straight to the castle. Just as he stepped into the castle, a deafening rumbling sound rang out from under his feet. The killing intent and divine sense collided with each other, and a world-destroying wave of air suddenly emerged and rolled in all directions. For a moment, in this world the void collapsed, the desert sank, and yellow sand flew all over the sky. Finally, the killing intent was shattered. But Ren Duxing's divine sense also disappeared by more than half. Just you wait, I will never let you go. Ren Duxing couldn't help but roar. Whether it was his face or his eyes, they were full of weakness. When the wind calmed down, the inner demons appeared in the desert. Looking at Ren Duxing in the sky, his eyes flashed and he laughed. It seems that your divine sense is really not much left. Ren Duxing's face darkened. The inner demons flew up and laughed. Tell me, how much is left? 10? 5? Or is there only one last wisp of divine sense left? Ren Duxing said sternly, If you dare to talk nonsense again, don't blame me for being ruthless. If you really wanted to kill me, you would have done it long ago. Why wait until now? I think you still need me to help you with something? The inner demons teased. If he had no value, Ren Duxing would have definitely joined forces with the Imperial Advisor to kill him in the Magic Dragon Mountain range. Haha, Ren Duxing laughed and mocked. You are so smart you can think of anything, but in the end you were still tricked by Elder Qin. Biological brothers. The inner demons muttered to themselves. How is this possible? Whoosh! Qin Feiyang manifested next to the inner demons. His face was also full of disbelief. The inner demons deactivated the kill formula, turned to Qin Feiyang and said, I won't interfere in this matter. You do as you see fit. After that, the inner demons retreated to the inner world. Qin Feiyang also took control of his physical body. He lowered his head in silence. The eldest prince and Zhuge Mingyang were biological brothers. If what Ren Duxing said was true, then this matter would be a big deal. A moment later, he raised his head and glanced at the desert of death, then took out a portal and was ready to leave. Are you Jiang Haotian? Suddenly, a timid voice sounded. Huh. Qin Feiyong was stunned. He had not used the name Jiang Haotian for many years. And now the world knew that he was Qin Feiyong. Why would someone still call him by this name? He glanced around and finally found that the voice came from the desert below. Qin Feiyong asked, I am Jiang Haotian. May I ask who you are? It's really you. Accompanied by a joyful voice, the yellow sand below surged. Suddenly, a huge python rushed out of the yellow sand. Its body was dozens of meters long, and its whole body was yellow. Its lantern-like pupils were full of excitement. Qin Feiyong was stunned. He never thought that it would be a python. Do you still remember me? The python flew in front of Qin Feiyong and said excitedly, You are? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. Back then, when you and the ruffian wolf wanted to go to the Sea of Despair, I was the one who took you through the desert of death. Before we parted, you promised that you would come to me in the future and give me the breakthrough pill and transformation pill. The python transmitted its voice, beaming with joy. So it's you. Qin Feiyong suddenly realized. He finally remembered. That's right. Back then, it was this python in front of him that took him and the white-eyed wolf to the Sea of Despair. Moreover, this python also helped them open the door of potential. Of course, the python didn't know about this. Meeting after a long time, Qin Feiyong was also very happy. He even forgot about his troubles and asked, How have you been these years? I have been waiting for you all these years but you didn't come to me. The python was a little disappointed. I'm sorry. I was too busy and forgot what I promised you. Qin Feiyong said apologetically. The python laughed. It's fine as long as you're here. Qin Feiyong was a little ashamed, and asked with a smile, Why are you here? I was meditating in the distance. I suddenly heard the sound of a battle here so I came over to take a look. I didn't expect it to be you. The python said. I'm really sorry. Do you still need the transformation pill and the breakthrough pill now? Qin Feiyong asked. No need. A few years ago by chance I came across a dead body. In his Chenkuan bag I found a lot of pills including the barrier-breaking pill and the transformation pill. The python said. Qin Feiyong laughed. This is called good people have good karma. How am I a good person? I was just lucky. The python was a little shy. Qin Feiyong sized it up. After all these years, the python's strength had also broken through. 6-star War Emperor. In this desert, it was already strong enough to dominate. Suddenly, he made the next decision in his heart and smiled. Are you willing to leave with me? Leave? The python was a little stunned, obviously not expecting Qin Feiyong to ask such a question. Of course I won't force you. If you don't want to, I will leave behind some pills, enough for you to break through to the War Master. Qin Feiyong said. I'm willing. The python nodded. Qin Feiyong was slightly startled. This caught him off guard. He originally thought that the python would consider it carefully, but he didn't expect it to agree so straightforwardly. There are some things that I have to tell you in advance. Although you can obtain great strength by following me, you will also face many powerful enemies at the same time. For example, the current imperial advisor and emperor of the Great Qin Empire. Qin Feiyong said. Are they very powerful? The python looked at him in confusion. Ugh! Qin Feiyong was startled, and then laughed bitterly. The python had always lived in the Death Desert, so how could it know how powerful the current emperor and the imperial advisor were? They are very strong. Because they are the dominators of this continent, Qin Feiyong patiently explained. He was very grateful to this giant python. Back then, if he were to rely on himself, it would take at least a few years to cross this desert. There was even a great possibility that he would be buried in the Death Desert. After all, at that time he was only a martial ancestor. He was like this. As long as he was indebted to someone, whether it was a human or a beast, he would repay it double. Hearing Qin Feiyong's explanation, the python sighed. I didn't expect that there would be such a terrifying existence in this world. What about you? What's your cultivation now? It asked again. Qin Feiyong said. 6-star Battle Saint. A battle saint is simply a godlike existence. The python sighed, but its eyes were even more determined. I'm not afraid, because I also want to be like you and break through with a bang. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, let's go, I'll take you to a place. After saying that, he opened the portal in his hand. The python's enormous body rapidly shrunk. After that, it followed behind Qin Feiyong and entered the teleportation gate. Iron Ox Town. There was nothing left of this small village. Although many days had passed, there was still a tragic aura left in the void. Outside the town, deep in the mountains, a clear lake rippled. A simple courtyard was located beside the lake. Whoosh! Qin Feiyong and the python appeared in front of the courtyard one after another. The python asked suspiciously, where is this place? My home. Qin Feiyong looked at the courtyard and smiled. Home. The python was stunned and looked around curiously. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and Fatso and the rest, Wolf King and other beasts all appeared in an instant. In short, in the ancient castle except for Mu Qing everyone came out. Seeing so many people and beasts appear at once, and each of them had an extremely powerful aura, the python was so scared that it hurriedly hid behind Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong pulled it out and smiled. Don't be afraid, they are all my family. After saying that, Qin Feiyong looked at Fatso and the others and said, everyone, welcome our new partners. Little Worm, long time no see. How are you? Did you miss your brother? The white-eyed wolf was the first to go up and laughed. The python looked at the white-eyed wolf and suddenly its eyes trembled and said in surprise, that ruffian wolf. A row of black lines appeared on the white-eyed wolf's forehead. No matter who it met, they all called it ruffian wolf. Was it really that bad? Little guy, welcome to the pirate ship. The two-winged snow eagle was also very enthusiastic, but this sentence made Qin Feiyong a little angry. What pirate ship? Do you know how to speak? The pangolin also stared at the two-winged snow eagle and ran to the front of the python with a smile. Don't be nervous, we are all good people. But that smile was very wretched. Good people. The python looked strange. These guys in front of it didn't look like good people at all. The black dragon snake shouted. Okay, they just joined and don't know us. What if they are scared away? Join. The python's heart skipped a beat. This seemed to be a special word for bandits and robbers, right? Could this really be a pirate ship? Looking at the python's worried look, Qin Feiyong was quite helpless. He stared at Wolf King and the other beasts and said, stop fooling around, hurry up and prepare, we are going to barbecue. Barbecue.